up? What's happening? Welcome in on a Friday. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. And we are starting the show with a bang today. It is our pleasure to welcome in our good friend from Fox Sports, Mark Schlereth, who's on the call this weekend with Chris Myers and company. Stink, how's it going, man? Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday to you. It's going great, man. Had great meetings up at Commander Central, and it was great. It was great to watch practice. Great to meet with Ron and Eric Bieniemy and Sam Howell, and got to meet with Jamin Davis. So I had a great afternoon, really hashing it out with those guys.
So when you earlier in the week, you were on some other shows and you talked about the offensive line performance from Sunday against the Giants bluntly, which is to say it wasn't very good. And people that listen to you know, like you say, you call it like it is. After you make comments that strong and they get the kind of attention they did, is it, I don't want to say awkward to walk in, but like, does it come up in the meetings?
No, I don't care.
I know you don't care. I'm just curious if it comes up.
Right. Yeah, no, listen, it comes up in that, Martin Mayhew pulled me aside. He was my former teammate, and ultimately, asked me like, "Hey, did you get any side eyes from?" And I don't care. Like, side eye me all you want. I know what I'm studying. I know what I'm looking at. And here's the point. If you're a guy that does what I do, and you just watch TV copy, and you say things that are blatantly untrue, or you don't have full context, then you're not respected. But Ron and the rest of the people over there, Bieniemy and Sam and all the people over there know that I come from a place of expertise, and I didn't watch just the television copy. I dug into the coach's film, and I can tell you every negative play they had the last 4 weeks. I've looked at every sack, and there are a lot of dirty fingerprints on it all. But the bottom line is their offensive line against New York, against the Buffalo Bills, they did not play well. But there's plenty. I mean, you can look at every single sack like I did. Those comments were on my podcast, the Odyssey podcast, The Stinking Truth. So check that out. But I've got all kinds of information there. And I will do a wrap-up show next week on the Stinking Truth podcast that will basically take all the notes that I had from these meetings that I just had, and I'll discuss the game between Philly and Washington. But the bottom line is this. I can look at every sack, and I can look at receivers who don't beat one-on-one coverage. I can look at receivers that don't get their head around, they snap their head around, like a lack of football understanding. So you get a blitzer from your side, and you're running a shallow cross, and you're waiting to hit the mesh point with the other receiver running a little bit deeper shallow cross. You're running some type of pick concept, and you don't snap your head around. So the quarterback's ready to throw it, and you're not looking. So I can look at that. I can look at Sam Howell holding on to the ball or not changing and redirecting a protection. Like you can see it all when you're looking at all, the all 22, and I've got the end zone from both sides. I mean, I consult for several teams, so I have all the coaches' tape on everything, and that's what I do all week. I just look at tape, and so there are plenty of dirty fingerprints, but the lack of execution up front. The lack of blocking guys one-on-one on their offensive line, and the lack of kind of quote-unquote understanding of how to pick up games. I mean, even if you're Philly and you decide not to blitz, you're going to run a bunch of games because they have yet to pick one up. And so, and I'm exaggerating that to a degree, but they were so bad that you're going to get a ton of tackle end or tackle games or, tackle backer fill. So you're going to get a ton of that stuff because you can't pick it up or you haven't picked it up. So we're about to find out, but it's been pretty ugly.
Yeah, to say the least. Mark Schlereth is with us, and he's talking about tackle, and stunts and games and stuff. And we're 6 minutes into the show, and Mark, I'm just so happy. This is how I wanted to start my Friday. Is getting deep into the X's and O's with you, because I think you put it so well when you say there are fingerprints all over it, because everyone wants to put all of the blame on one place. It's all Sam's fault. It's all Bieniemy's fault. It's all the O-line's fault. And when you give up 40 sacks, I think is the number, through 7 games, there is blame all around. Are there any threads, though, that tie everything together where you say, like, this is the biggest thing? If they fix this thing or they can get better at this thing, and it sounds like maybe the kind of global understanding of it all, then they can bring that number down dramatically.
Yeah, well, I think then I look at the enemy, and very pointed question: what do you have to do? What do you have to do from a play caller standpoint to be better? Because I'll tell you from my perspective, you give up 7 sacks a game, it's not just your offensive line that is struggling or that stinks. It's your play caller. And so, you get into a situation where you're in a bunch of condensed formations. You're a 3-by-1, but you've got a tight split on the backside, and your tight end is just barely open off the ball a couple of yards. You bring in a lot of players that are blitzers in that situation. And now your quarterback has to guess right. Your offensive line has to slide right. You have to decide if you're going to bypass the linebacker, get to the edge. Like, you've got to make all these decisions on the fly. And obviously that's harder to do when you're up in New York on the road. The other part of that is, like, for me, if we're struggling in pass protection, let's get out of 3 wides. Let's get out of nickel personnel so they have, athletic blitzers and corners and safeties that can blitz and linebackers that can blitz, and let's muck this thing up. Let's get into heavy personnel. Let's get into 2 tights. Let's get a fullback in there. You know what? Let's do that, and let's get their fat personnel on the field. Like, let's get all linebackers on the field, all their big defensive linemen who don't have the athleticism and aren't going to be as good of blitzers. So, like, from a play calling standpoint, you've got to be better with how you run the football, the quick game, the quick screen game, all those kind of things. You have to eliminate opportunities for the team to rush you. So I'll give you a for instance. If you're going to drop back on an average game 35 times, you got to figure out a way to get that down to about 12 times where the offensive line is left hanging out to dry to pass pro. So how do you do that? Well, you get 5 3-step drops, right? You get 5 screens, a couple bubble screens, a couple regular screens. Now we're down from 35 to 25. All right, now we get a couple of run action, play action. I'd like to see them get under center more, right? Run action, you flag the ball out there, you boot keep, you move the pocket, you get a couple of sprints. You do that. Now we're down to 20. Now you have a couple of 5-step drops that have 0 hitches in it. So it's a 5-step all go, and we're going to throw the ball. It's going to come out on time. So now all of a sudden we get 5 of those. Now I'm down to 15 plays. 15 plays that we have to hold up as an offensive line. If you can't hold up in those 15 plays when you've had all that other stuff, those are all tools, right, in your tool belt.
Right.
So you're not being asked to say, hey, man, I want you to build this deck, and I want you to make this beautiful deck on the back of my house. But I'm not going to give you a level. I'm not going to give you a saw. I'm not going to give you a screw. I'm not going to give you screw guns. I'm just going to give you a hammer. I can build you a deck, but the deck's going to suck, and I would suggest you don't step on it. So, right, if you can get it down to 15 and I still can't hold up, then I suck as an offensive lineman. You need to get new offensive line. But as a play caller, you keep putting guys in positions to fail. Don't be surprised when they fail. That's all. And it's a very honest conversation. And, and what are you going to do differently to help your group out? And it's not vitriolic or anything. It's just real. It's like, let's have some real conversations of what's going on here.
Totally. And the thing is, Mark, like, that's kind of the offense we thought we were going to get when EB got here. And Logan Paulson and I talked about this on our podcast all summer, and we've been talking about it all year. We've talked about it on the show, and we've said many of the same things. And obviously they have a little bit more credence coming from Logan, a decade in the league, coming from you, 3 Super Bowl rings, than they do coming from me, who's covered the league as a reporter and knows more than the average person, but is still a media person who didn't play in the NFL. But if we can all come up with the same solutions, as you have that conversation with Eric, why hasn't he implemented them? Because they seem so painfully obvious. At least some of them do.
Well, yeah, some of them do. But then you look at the way you're built, and the way you're built is not Eric's fault. That's not his fault. That all your tight ends are 6'5" and high cut athletes, and they don't necessarily sink their hips very well and block people. And you don't have anybody. You have Alex Arm on the practice squad, but you don't have anybody that can actually line up in the backfield as a fullback and really create movement on a ISO play or a Bob backer on, a back on backer type of run, right? So you don't have, like, from a personnel standpoint, I would say that your team has been built from the outside in. So you got great receivers. That's awesome to have great receivers. But I know one thing about this league, and this will always be true. This will never go in and out of fashion. If you can't block people and you can't control the line of scrimmage, I don't care how dynamic your receivers are, you're going to lose. Yeah. And that is 100% true. It will never change. And, you look at the way these two teams have been built, like these two teams that are facing off right now, if you really broke down the two teams, the rosters, the Philadelphia Eagles are built from the inside out. I mean, what's the strongest parts of their football team? Their offensive line, their defensive line. Without question, there's nobody that could argue that. And even when they are dominant up front, they still go out and get Jalen Carter. They still go out and draft Cam Jurgens in the second round. They still go out and address that position. So they never let that become a position of weakness. And then when they have a miss at the receiver position in Jalen Reagor, they dump him and they go out and trade for A.J. Brown. I say, well, let's get a proven veteran here. But the bottom line is they can dominate you at the line of scrimmage at all times, and therefore they're always going to be in a position of strength to win football games.
Mark Schlereth, NFL on Fox, is on the call this weekend with us here on the Hoffman Show, and that makes total sense. And it's been a huge, I think, complaint from the fan base and from everybody watching this team that wants to see him succeed as they've watched the O-line deteriorate over the last 4 years. But of course there is just the simple, like, okay, well then what about this weekend? Because you can't get a whole new offensive line this weekend. And sure, you also have a quarterback who had a sack problem in college. He holds the ball for a long time. You mentioned some of the things with Sam in terms of identifying protections. Like, how do you try to manage that this weekend? And by the way, what did they do against the Eagles the first time? Because that was probably their best offensive performance of the season, even though it came in a loss.
Yeah, no question about it. They got the ball out quicker. So you design things to get the ball out quick. You get your quick game going. You get all that stuff. You get all that stuff rolling. They got to run the ball better. I mean, they've got to be more. They have to run the ball better, and they have to. Like, here's the thing about running the football, and this is another reason I'd like to see them under center a little bit more. Opens up the real play action stuff, the hard play action. It also opens up your run game. Out of shotgun, it limits. It limits probably 40% of what you can run as an offense. You're running out of gun, you're running mid-zone, you're running power and counter essentially. And there's not a lot of front side plays when you're sitting side saddle with a running back. So it eliminates a bunch of stuff you can run. The other thing it does, and what people don't really understand, and Philly, don't get me wrong, Philly runs pretty much primarily all shotgun as well. But they have a bunch of full-grown ass men on their line of scrimmage that will thunder punch you, the clown hammer your ass. So it's different, right?
Yeah.
But one of the things that happens to you when you run out of shotgun, and I always do this when I'm watching film, I time clock things. So I'll put a stopwatch on it. And on average, from snap to handoff to the line of scrimmage, it takes a running back about 0.4 of a second longer out of shotgun run than it does out of under center run, because the quarterback gets the ball and he's going to the running back as he's moving forward. He's not waiting for the running back and then holding it in his belly as he travels to the line of scrimmage. So about 0.4 of a second longer that you have to hold a block. And when you're already struggling as an offensive line, and now I have to hold my block for a half a second longer, that's the difference between a no-yard gain, where a guy is squaring you up in the hole, and arm tackles where you fall forward for 4.5 yards and you stay on schedule. And so there's some stuff that I would just look at, and this is just me personally. In my 6 years in Washington, we never ran a shotgun play. Our 4 years under Joe Gibbs, we never ran a shotgun play.
Right.
I did in Denver, but most of it was only third down, shotgun stuff. It wasn't a lot of gun in the league at that point. But that again, I think there's a place for a lot of shotgun stuff. but I think that you have to be more balanced than that. And as far as Sam Howell is concerned, I think one of the things you have to understand is that when you grow up in this league and all you are is in shotgun, not even grow up in this league, but you go through college and all you do is run shotgun stuff, your footwork is lazy mechanically and it doesn't time up to the routes. And it doesn't really need to in college because you're not facing multiple coverages and you've got a wide side of the field and there's different spacing in the college game. Your feet for a quarterback, your feet dictate the rhythm of the offense. And your feet are the timing mechanism of the passing game. And if your feet are not totally in sync with the route and route combinations, you will never be on time with the football. And so this is a big part of the learning curve for a lot of these quarterbacks coming out of college. I'll give you, for instance, real quick. Why is C.J. Stroud having unbelievable success where Young and, Richardson obviously got hurt, but where those guys aren't? Well, C.J. Stroud has been under center since Pop Warner. He was under center a bunch at Ohio State. From a footwork standpoint, talking to their coaches that coached in San Francisco, he had better under center mechanics and footwork in his drops than Brock Purdy did, who played 4 years at Iowa State as an under center quarterback. It matters. It's not the best college quarterback that you're going after. It's the best quarterback who transitions and skill set transitions the best to the NFL's game, which is completely different from the college game.
Yeah, no, that's really well put. And, Sam's struggles from under center are definitely present when you watch the film. You can see the struggle with the footwork, the timing. I mean, I think some of the height stuff comes in. If these guards aren't going to be like elite guards in front of him, how much space does he have? Can he actually see the route? So there's a lot of that. Real quick before we let you get out of here, Mark, defensively, the Commanders have been tremendously consistent over the 4 years of Jack Del Rio. They have been terrible the first 5 games, and then they've gotten pretty good over the remainder of the season. With that, this year, they're on schedule. They've been much better the last 2 weeks. Last week, probably their best defensive performance of the season. Do you think that they figured some things out, or has it just been a case of facing Desmond Ridder and whatever's left of the Giants' offense last week?
Yeah, no, I think they've probably figured some things out. There's obviously, been some growing pains from Forbes. They've mixed around the defensive backfield with St. Juice going over there and starting a corner and flip-flopping some guys and a couple of guys, Derek Forrest being hurt. He's a really good football player. So there's been some of those issues. Cody Barton getting hurt last week at the linebacker spot. So there have been some of those issues. They've got a great front. They've got just a great front 8 rotation for crying out loud. So they are, they're outstanding that way. The other thing to me is the complementary nature of football. When you're going 3 and out on a majority of plays and you're not converting third downs because you're not having success on first down, and it's really hard on a defense. Because defense is, it's just much more reactionary than the offensive side of the football. And there's part of me that just felt like, and has felt like, this defensive philosophy doesn't really complement their offensive philosophy, or vice versa. And so I think there needs to be a little bit more of a melding of these two kind of concepts where, hey, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of big up, if you will, heavy up in being a little bit more 21 personnel or 12 personnel or 22 personnel type of stuff. And we're going to slow the pace down a little bit. We're going to be a little bit more physical in the run game. And we're going to take some pressure off of us to make sure we're in third down and manageable situations so that we can churn some first downs, so that we're not always behind the chains, and so that we complement our defense a little bit better. Because what ends up happening is, and you know this, you get into a situation where, hey, if you start all of a sudden counting possessions and say my offensive football team is possessing the ball, and they're driving, they're putting 7, 8, 9 minute drives together, and they're scoring field goals and stuff, eventually you'll start to count your defense or your offensive possessions on the other side going, shoot, we only have, like, normally we have 12 in a game. Right now we're counting and we may get 7. So what do? Well, you start consciously you start going, well, we got to throw the ball because every possession we got to score. And because we're running out of possessions. And now you give that defense an absolute opportunity to go hunt with guys like Deron Payne and Montez Sweat and Chase Young and Jonathan Allen. So, like, I just don't think they've matched up complementary-wise as an offense and a defense.
No, definitely not. The Atlanta game where they had a good offensive first half, I think, is probably the best example of that this year. Ironically, the other one's probably Philly. So we'll see if they can repeat it again on Sunday. Mark, great stuff as always. Hopefully I'll see you Sunday at FedEx after I get there. And if not, have a great call either way. And we always appreciate your time here on the show.
Appreciate it. Hey, make sure you check out the Stinking Truth podcast, too, on Odyssey. So
yes,
make you guys check that out because it's going to be, like I said, I'll have that leftover show after this game that I'll probably record on Monday. So you'll get all the inside stuff.
Love it. Love it. Check that out, The Stinking Truth, on the free Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcast. Mark, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You got it. Take care.
All right, that's Mark Schlereth, everybody, with us here on The Hoffman Show. What a start to the show today. Tremendous stuff from Stink, and it actually rolls really nicely into what we talked about to open the show on Take Command. If you haven't listened to the podcast yet, you just keep listening right now, because if you want to hear more about how the Commanders can detail up their running game, and if they need to, I mean, let's just be honest, they need to run the football more, but more importantly, they need to be more efficient running the football. The distinction on that and how they can actually accomplish it from the brain of Logan Paulson. That is next on The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. start to the show. Mark Schlereth, phenomenal. If you're just tuning in and missed it, go ahead. Hit the rewind button in the free Odyssey app. Check out Stink. Catch back up. You can fast forward through some breaks. Apologies to our advertisers. Yeah, the commercials are also very good on the show, I must say. So, do what you got to do. Catch up. Find a way to listen to that interview. It was really, really good. Great stuff. And frankly, I think the frustrating thing is, sometimes when you're covering a single team, you can get caught up in, get high off your own supply, if you will, where you're just like, I'm right. And then you get a fresh set of eyes and someone comes in from the outside and is like, no, actually the better solution is this, or like, here's what you're missing, or here's some context. And for a guy who's as locked in as Schlereth and who has, dedicates himself the way and does the job correctly the way that Mark does, to be like, yeah, no, here's all the stuff. It's not like I talked to him beforehand and was like, hey, here's what we've been talking about all week. Say the same stuff, make us feel really smart. Like, Mark came on, I asked him the questions, the stuff that we've been kicking around, and he proposed many of the same solutions and identified many of the same problems that we've been talking about on this show and that Logan and I have been talking about on Take Command. And some of that is kind of a within the context of where we started the show yesterday, this global NFL-wide issue of not running the football as much and seeing offenses really struggle, defensive coordinators catching up, some of the reasons why. And we got into that on Take Command that we recorded yesterday morning, came out this morning, and that we'll let you hear in just a second. But it starts off with a basic question, like the run game. What should the role be in terms of that in the Commanders' offense? And here's the discussion between Logan and I on that. One thing that we want to talk about that's more kind of contained within the Commanders' world is the play calling balance for Eric Bieniemy. And a big topic of this week, obviously, has been the pressures and sacks given up on Sunday to the Giants, who had 5 coming into the game and left with far more than that in the game itself. I guess they wanted with 6 in the game itself, so more than doubled their sack total on the year. And it was the first time, I think, this year that you look back and you go, yeah, most of those were on the offensive line, as opposed to Sam holding the ball too long, not moving in the pocket, whatever it may be. But then people start throwing around these stats of like, oh, the O-line's been bad all year. Andrew Wiley's given up more pressures than anyone else. Sadiq Charles has given up more sacks than any interior offensive lineman, or second most, or whatever it is. And then you just start to look at the percentage numbers, and they're right there in the middle. They're average. And you just realize, like, part of the reason that the sack number, the pressure number is so high is because Sam Howell has dropped back to pass more than almost any other, or might even be more than any other. He's top highest. 2. Yeah, he's dropped back to pass more times than any quarterback in the league this year, and thus there are more opportunities, and those average percentages yield higher raw numbers. So with that very nerdy setup, Logan, from a sheer volume standpoint, do they need to just run the football more to keep Sam upright? And is what effect does that have, or is that a silly oversimplification of a strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit of an oversimplification, but like with everything, there's an element of truth to that, right? And I think when you look at, I think they're at 70% pass to run ratio. It's insanely high, and in terms of drop back pass attempts, they're leading by 100 attempts. It's a really crazy statistical breakdown when you look at that. So obviously you need to do something a little bit more, because while analytically I think we both support the idea of throwing the football as being relatively more efficient, I also think there's advantages to running the football in terms of game flow, in terms of de-leveraging your quarterback, making it easier for your offensive line, like you just alluded to, all those different things. So I do think you need to probably run the football more, but I also think there's layers to this. And so the first layer is obviously the run game, like we've talked about, is kind of cultivated around this idea that you're going to throw the ball to then run. And there's not this crazy, nuanced, hyper detailed rushing attack. And I'm going to cite, the 49ers, the Green Bay Packers, the Miami Dolphins. Those are all run schemes that I'm very familiar with. Even the Detroit Lions, they have a lot of things that I see and I'm like, oh, that's really good high-level stuff. Receivers involved in the blocking surface. We're changing strength in the middle of the play. We have the tight end off the ball to the left. He's blocking back to the right on an outside zone to the right. We're immediately changing of strength. We're using the jet motion principles to kind of find advantageous looks, find the bubbles and spacing of the defense, and find the angles to the next level. That is when I think about a good running game, that's what I think about. Now, like there's many ways to do this thing. There's 100 ways to skin a cat, a million ways to skin a cat, whatever it is. But I think like that's what I would like to see more of. But again, that's my own personal bias. If you want to run the football more, you have to be invested in it in a way that I don't think this team has invested in it. And so I would say, well, what are some simple solutions that you've seen that there's a precedent for, having watched Kansas City, having watched where EB comes from? And some of the stuff that maybe you say we could get some miles out of is, hey, let's run a couple more jet sweeps. And it doesn't need to be 10 more jet sweeps. We're talking 3 more jet sweeps, because then when that jet sweep action comes and the linebackers bump, now we've kind of cultivated some creative angles to the next level. So I think there is an element of, yes, you want to run the football more, but you need to be more efficient running the football. And how do you do that? And to me, there's a schematic element, there's an identity element, it's a lot. And to kind of make that adjustment, week 7 of the football season can be a little bit challenging. But also, like to your point, you brought this up the other day, and I think it's a brilliant point. Even the stuff that we thought we'd see in terms of screens and kind of quick passes, and I'm not talking quick game, I'm talking like quick little bubble screen outlets, that elevates the rushing attack. And that kind of is a supplement for that. And we haven't seen a lot of that. It's been very, very consistent in terms of they run a ton of 5-step drop. And that's what it's been good for them. And I like it, but I'm also of the mindset that, hey, man, we need to kind of find some different stuff to do. And I don't like to be critical of play callers because it's so hard to do that. But if I'm just kind of 1,000-foot view, and if EB came up to me, I'd say, hey, man, and he asked me, Logan, he asked me for my opinion. This is what I tell him. I'd say, hey, I'd like to see a little bit more diversity in terms of how do we get to our runs. I know we like these runs, but can we be more diverse in terms of formation, motion, shift, whatever, to find advantageous looks? Can we find some of these other opportunities that Kansas City utilizes in terms of screens, like bubble pass? That's not exactly what I want to call it because it's more complicated than just bubble passes, but quick immediate throws, now screens, stuff like that, to again elevate what you're doing offensively and create horizontal stretch in the defense. And I think there are elements of that. I think I really believe they thought the RPO would be more effective for them this year. It hasn't really hit the way they thought, I don't think. So there's an answer, yes, but it's more complicated than just yes. The running game needs to be more efficient. There are a million ways to be more efficient. You have to select one that you feel like in kind of fits with your offensive philosophy. And that's the thing that I think is challenging at this point, is how do you kind of analytically step back, say, this is who we want to be offensively. We want to be a team that passes a lot, but we also got to run the ball. So where is the kind of the Venn diagram cross-sectional that fits us really well?
So I think there's also some unique challenges, maybe not unique, actually, even thinking about the league, but like some logistical challenges with how they run their offense too, because it's better to run the ball from under center, but you like from angle standpoint, and we talked about that, and you've gone in great detail and kind of informed everybody about why that is in terms of the angles created, the timing of certain plays. Well, but they don't pass the ball from under center. So you can't just be like, oh, well, we'll run it from under center and then we'll go back in the shotgun to pass it because then the defense is onto you. Like there's some stuff that's too simple and that it won't work because defenses will be on it.
Well, I think even gun runs, there's obviously like for under center, like there's things the backs can do. The shoulders are facing the line of scrimmage. They can be a little bit more aggressive, build more speed. But when you're in gun, if the back's to my right, they can only run to the left. Like that's the run you're going to run. And a lot of people say you can pitch left, you can pitch it to the right you can pitch it to the same side the back's on. But a lot of teams don't do that. So like there are, I do film breakdowns for guys around the league who are defensive players, and there are insane tendencies when the back is offset to the right. It's like 90% run to the left. And so like it limits your ability to attack both sides of the defense effectively. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that people often forget too. So in addition to being somewhat challenging for the back, I personally think, again, I come from a system where we do a lot of dot runs. Even if it's pistol, you're behind the back, you're at 7 yards, you're attacking line of scrimmage, the back can build momentum. You're working on an angle as opposed to working like a 90-degree cut. Think about it. If I cross the quarterback, my shoulders are perpendicular to the line of scrimmage or parallel to the line of scrimmage as opposed to relatively perpendicular. So all of those things factor in. And I really believe, like when you look at good teams, like that have good gun runs, they have a little bit of a wrinkle. Like Philly, for example, they are a team that has some good gun runs. A, their offensive line's amazing, and they're able to create a ton of space. B, they have one of the most mobile centers in football. They use him like a fullback, and that really elevates what they do. So what is your wrinkle?
And one other thing too, because it connects to your last point that the Eagles have, you can't just play 90% run to the right, because Jalen could keep it
100%.
at a much higher rate than any other quarterback in the league.
100%. And so I think like obviously the Philadelphia is like like that's really hard to replicate, but you look at like Sean McVay and what he did in LA when he first got there, and he found a way through the jet sweep action and through utilizing of jet sweep, which is, permeated the NFL at this point, to kind of find his own wrinkle. And so I'm not saying you need to do anything crazy, but what is the wrinkle? What is the thing that allows you to be just a little bit more efficient in the run game? And I think there's some. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say I think B-Rob and Gibson are having a hard time with some of the techniques they want them to learn. You can tell sometimes in terms of stretching the run and getting it where it needs to go. But I also think you just help those guys out, help the backs out, help the offensive line out in terms of angles. Like I hate as an analyst when the double team is just going straight or it's going to an angle to the front side. It just is. When it's an out leverage double team, it's hard. It's really, really hard to be successful with that. So I would just say, obviously, I think we all identify that running the football would bring down that percentage in terms of discrepancy. It's just right now they're not overly efficient in terms of running the ball. So my question to fans, to people watching is, don't think of it as like, I need to run the ball more. I need to run the ball more efficiently earlier in the game, I think is the other element I would kind of allude to there. Because I do think they have good rushing efficiency in the second half, but I think that is they've kind of built that in because they throw the ball, they get these two shell structures, and then it's like, okay, yeah, it's opened up now, our angles are better, but sometimes you don't have time to do that. So that's kind of my thought on that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see Curtis get back involved in the run game as well. He had to carry in most of their early games this season when the offense, I feel like, is a little more consistent. And there's just something about that. Like, one, he's good at it. And you should get good players the ball in spaces where they're good. But two, I think it's just another look. It's another thing for a defense to think about. And it can open up some stuff. So I think getting him involved, some of the, like a jet pass to Terry, something like that, getting Jahan a jet sweep, like it also gets these playmakers involved. The under center thing though, is there any track record of success for Sam under center as a passer? Like is that even an option? Because it seemed like when they wanted to run the ball last week, when EB was like, okay, we got to run some, this is not going well. They went to like the same play. It looked like under center, the same, at least like, sure. Like fake it left, go right. But they also then eventually ran a play action off it, and Sam got destroyed instantly because the Giants probably thought it was run and just bowled through the line of scrimmage and went right after Sam. So there was no time. So like you have to be able to mix it up with a little bit of drop back, with a little bit of roll, with something that's a passing element from under center. Have they done that really at all this year? It doesn't feel like yes.
I mean, in the Broncos game, they did a little bit under center, but I think, and they do pass a little bit from under center, but it's not, again, it's majority gun. I want to say it's like 80% gun. That's just a number that I pulled out of my hat over there.
Right.
But it feels that way. Right. And it's a
very nice hat, by the way.
Thank you. They do some stuff like that, but to your point, does it marry? There are times even too, like where I feel like from a personnel standpoint, it's very obvious that they're trying to run the football. It's like we're in 12, we're in 13. There are times where they spread them out and it looks like they're going to throw the ball, and then they get nice and tight and packed in, and it's a run. So running the football kind of encapsulates all of these things. I don't think the offense is bad. I think the offense has done some stuff that I've been really impressed with. I think the way that Sam has developed in the offense has been very impressive. Obviously, there are some outliers to this, but he's a young quarterback. He's learning a new system.
Yeah. It's hard to feel that way when, like, if the progress is the old stock market graph where like you just have to invest over time. On one of the dips, it's hard to feel like you're making progress. But if you look at where we are now compared to where we were week 2, it's still, and you draw a straight line, it's still up.
Yeah, it is very, very challenging. And I understand that that's so hard for fans or people just watching the game to kind of internalize, but Sam has done some really good stuff this year. So it's just about, again, to this kind of overall point is how do you, when Sam's off, which I would say in the Giants game, he's off, how do you run your offense more effectively? And it wasn't just Sam. Obviously, Nick Gates had a hard game. Sadiq, gave up pressure. Like everyone kind of took their turns, and we talked about that on the review pod, the film review pod. But when it's not going well, like, do you have something that settles you in? And I feel like they found that in terms of the sprint stuff that they did in the second half to the tune of probably like 8 to 10 times. But I don't know. Maybe I'm old school in this regard, but I feel like you should have that kind of, yeah, if we have to run the ball, we can run the ball. And I think about, the old Indianapolis Colts with Peyton Manning, for example, like best quarterback maybe of all time. And when it got into the playoffs and he was having an off game, they couldn't run the ball. And then you compare that to Tom Brady when he's having an off game. Yeah, we can run the heck out of the ball because it's part of our team identity. And so where is that? And again, this is a new offensive coordinator, new system. He's establishing his identity. I think it's all kind of to be expected, especially in the first year. But it is frustrating to not have those answers right away. But history shows you that new offenses, no matter where they are, tend to struggle, and the ones that are very successful tend to be outliers.
Yeah, and I'll add this to EB's credit. I think for a lot of this year, like the stuff that got Sam comfortable, those plays that you talk about to like create that comfortability, get Sam back on track, were the quick game stuff that he was missing. So that's tough. When it's like, this is the thing. Oh, he's not doing the thing. Crap. Right. What else do we do? And how quickly can you get to something else? And the answer wound up being the roll stuff. And I would run him early in a game too. He's a guy that I think does that well, and it also can create like a little bit of a. We talk about the thing with Jalen, like you can't play the run straight because you're afraid of the read option. Like I would try to call a couple of those early and basically until he pulls one and get him kind of in the feel of the game that way as well. So that's another possibility.
Yeah. And again, there's not like a heavy lift. You're running a lot of tight zone. You're running a lot of duo anyway. Backs offset right. You read that right defensive end. It's the same action for the back. So, yeah. And I know you can tell they've tried to run it a couple of times and he's handed it off, and I think it's the right read. But at the same time, to your point, like, can you build that up?
Then you should have a numbers advantage. Those run plays should work then.
Right. And so, yeah. And so, again, I said it's the right read. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But yeah, I think to your point, like that's a nice way to add a little bit of flexibility. And then can you make that, can you make that package a little bit more, layered? Like I look at Philly, for example, and they are starting to kind of develop their RPO package. Like they had a third and short that they were running against Miami, where it looks like old Philly, where we've got two receivers to the left, we got split backs. They run a little pick play off the zone read. The linebacker steps up to tackle Jalen Hurts. He drops the guy in the flat. You throw it to the flat, ends up being a 20-yard gain. Like you're layering a concept that's really easy for the quarterback and really easy for the offense to install off of something that you already have in, assuming that they have that zone read stuff, which we've seen they've run in short yardage situations. So I would say, yeah, like what is the wrinkle? Like maybe that's the conclusion here is what is your wrinkle to find a more efficient way to run the football? Because running the ball the way they've been running it obviously is not tenable long term, and it just needs a little bit of seasoning, and I think it gets you where you want to go. So keep an eye out for that this week against Philly, I guess.
Yeah, I also wonder another potential solution. Let's go two backs. You just mentioned it with Philly. Like you got Gibson, you got Rodriguez, you got B-Rob. Like put them. You want to run left or run right? Put one on either side. Like it's that kind of stuff that you wonder. What is the ultimate solution? That's EB's job, not ours. We could throw out 1,000 possibilities, but we'll leave that there for now.
We're not the OC, right? Yeah.
No. My paycheck does not reflect OC. All right, that was from the Take Command podcast, which is available now anywhere you get your pods. We also get deeper into the specifics of the matchup against the Eagles and our predictions for how the Eagles defense will play this Commanders offense. And Anthony, I can go ahead and tell you that I do not think, like we talk about, what did they take out of the last game? How did the Commanders beat the Eagles last time? Well, one of the things that the Eagles have structurally in almost every game until the Miami game this year is this cover 3 match type of defense, which is one that Washington is very familiar with because it's their own, a different version of it, but it's what they've practiced against in training camp. And cover 3 has some pockets of space that work well with the Commanders' personnel and with what Eric Bieniemy's offense wants to do. It was funny on New Heights this week. Travis Kelce was like, how do you get a big game? He's like, cover 3, baby. Cover 3's got a lot of great stuff. It prevents a lot of big plays theoretically on the outside. because it kind of looks like man, and you let your corners cover deep receivers, blah, 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 blah. But there's some holes up the seams, and there's some kind of pockets that if you have a good quarterback, you can hit these 15-yard, hitches and digs and things kind of towards not the middle of the field, but like up the seams, up the alleys. So the thing is about that, the cover one structure also, the reason it works is because it kind of deters teams from running the football, because by nature you're bringing one safety down into the box as an underneath player. You're weaker, deeper, and you just hope that you have enough speed on the back end to make that work. And you have the really good you have a really good setup for run support. You have guys that account for every gap, et cetera, et cetera. With a too high structure, you are weaker in the box. You typically take that other safety obviously out of the box, and you're 4 deep across the back, or you're 2 deep in the middle, but your corners weren't going to be there for run support necessarily anyway. Like their positioning for run support doesn't change, but you're weaker anything between, and not even just between the tackles, but anything like off tackle to off tackle in terms of your run. So your wide zones and things are still, your corner can come in and pinch, but you're lighter than you would be in a single high structure. Gigantic setup to say the Eagles just played a team with a bunch of too high. Like they played the Dolphins with too high structures, middle field open, lighter box. Like, we're going to challenge you to run it, but you're sure as bleep not going to beat us over the top with Tyreek Hill. And while I would be less scared about the Commanders beating me over the top, not that Terry and Jahan and Curtis and Diami and all these fast guys can't, I would just beg them to run the ball. Like, if I was Sean Desai, I would keep the same exact coverage structures as I played last week against Miami and be like, if you goobers can figure out how to run the football against us and you beat us, we'll shake your hand and say congratulations. But we don't think you can do it. And because we don't think you can do it, you're going to try it, you're going to fail, and then you're going to be in 3rd and long, and then we're going to murder Sam Howell. And it's going to exacerbate the rushing problem, and it's going to exacerbate the pass pro problem. And that's why I'm terrified of this weekend, Anthony. That is why I'm terrified.
I mean, you have the right to be terrified. I think a lot of people still are under the impression we don't have a solution for this, sack problem of Sam's. And even if, we do establish the run, we're successful early, I still just think he's going to be the one that, again, puts Sam in the position to, take these sacks. Just because I feel as though he's pass happy. It's been consistent throughout 7 games. And even when we did get the run game going, he always resorts back to passing. So I think it's more. If
you can get the run game going, you get them out of those too high structures, you make them bring another run support player down. Now you can do that is how the Reed offense, the Bieniemy offense is designed. We are going to pass to run as opposed to most teams run to pass. And so if they want to pass later, all you're doing is flipping that script and going back to what traditionally has been thought of, which is like, we're going to run the football and establish it, make you defend against it. And if you don't defend it, then we're just going to keep running it down your throat, and that's going to be demoralizing and efficient for us. And if you do guard it, then we're going to start passing the ball. I don't mind him eventually getting, I won't say super pass heavy, but make them make that switch.
Yeah.
And that's what he hasn't proven, or that's not really how they've done it this year. Like, you think of when it works, the Broncos game, they run the ball more effectively late because the Broncos were like, oh, crap, we got to put another safety back there. We got to be too high more. We got to take this other player out of the box. And now it's all of a sudden available to run, and you can get away with the unspicy, unsexy, unseasoned runs that are in this offense.
Yeah, I mean, but what about, a disguise, where you have more people in the box and then, the safety shoots back?
Well, I mean, if he's in the box to start with and he sees run, he's coming down. It's already too late.
Okay, yeah.
So, your coverage structure's being sometimes safeties, don't really look, and they just run out, and you're like, cool, you ran out of a run play, you big dummy. But most of the time, once you're down there, you're down there. And they can get complicated. Then Sam's got to be able to see through that, but that's not necessarily a factor as much in the running game. So I texted Sam Fortier earlier this week with it turned out to be a bit of a homework project, but it was more of a hypothesis, and he has access to some data sets that I don't have access to. And what he found in terms of the places the Commanders are giving up sacks in terms of protections was very interesting. So we're going to talk to Sam about that and a bunch of other stuff he's been working on next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
Here's what.
Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Rolling on a Friday. Our NFL picks coming up at 5:30, but right now it is time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in, Not My Beat.
And we do welcome in Sam Fortier of the Washington Post. Sam, how are you, sir?
You know, Craig, I've been better. And if you can excuse me for a second, I was listening to the intro that you guys played.
Yeah.
When I was coming in, and I'm from Maine, and my parents are from not far from where that mass shooting happened the other day. And just before I came on, I was reading about some of the victims and talked to some of my family this morning who are locked down in their homes as they're looking for this guy. And man, it's just tough. It's maddening that we do this over and over again. And I didn't get on here to have a societal discussion or to talk about politics or whatever, but it's maddening. It makes you feel helpless. And the only thing that I can say, the only thing I can think to do is just bring it up and say,
we got to do better.
It's just really frustrating. We got to do better. So
yeah,
I don't want to derail anything. We can talk about some football, but I've been better, man.
I hear you, and I appreciate you saying that on an extremely human level. We all yell at each other about sports, and sometimes it's very easy. I mean, obviously, we're actual real life friends, but we have callers and we tweet it with people, and we have YouTube commenters, and human moments are important to remind ourselves and everybody else that we're all human. And we shouldn't probably get derailed by politics, but there, as usual, I think The Onion typically does the best job here, where they go, we can't believe this keeps happening, and the only place that it keeps happening is the rough version of that Onion headline. So, hopefully we got to do better. And before we get too derailed, we'll keep it back to football. But I sincerely appreciate you having that human moment with us and saying that. So to the football, and obviously no easy transition. We're just gonna put our heads down and go.
I'm ready to get fired up about Sam Howell and the Commanders and this weekend, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So I texted you earlier this week with a question because you are so good at diving into the data and figuring things out and then taking that data and turning it into actual meaningful conclusions. And what we were looking at is the sacks that Sam has taken based off of the number of blitzers / the number of people applying pressure and the number of people in protection. And you looked at the numbers, and then you went back and watched some of the actual plays themselves. After you did that, what did you come away thinking in some of the common threads of the problems for them?
Yeah, it wasn't super stunning in terms of a lot of the sacks are on Sam. A lot of the sacks last week were on the offensive line. I think that's why we're going to get some changes on Sunday. But really, I think that what stood out to me, kind of amazing is there were 7 of the 40 sacks where teams were sending, 4 to 5 rushers, and that Washington had 6+ blockers. So Washington in 7 of the 40 sacks had at least a +1, sometimes a +2 in the blocking category. And a lot of times, 5 or 6 of those are easily on Sam, holding the ball or trying to make something happen. It just reminded me, going through these sacks and watching them all, it's just even when it's not on Sam, it's not always on the same guy. Sometimes it's Charles Leno, or sometimes Andrew Wiley gets beat by a speed rush or a bull rush. And it's amazing to me how, I don't know, multifactorial or whatever, however you want to say, it's just you're playing whack-a-mole every time you turn on the tape.
Right. So is that a good thing because no singular player is playing horribly, or is that a bad thing because if it was one guy, you could just replace that guy?
I think it's a bad thing because it's okay, the offense is clearly not performing up to the standard, and there's not a super clear way to address this, to really say, okay, this problem should be fixed now. As we've seen at practice this week, it looks like Nick Gates is going to be benched in favor of Tyler Larson at center. Sadiq Charles at left guard is out with a calf strain, so it's either going to be Ricky Stromberg or Chris Paul. I would expect it probably to be Stromberg, considering he's been active and Chris Paul has not on game days throughout the season. But, I mean, those are not the things that are going to fix this team. Those are not the things that are going to save the season. You know what I mean?
Right. Them, if they play well, it'll help. And certainly when you look at what happened last week, that will help. But the thing I wonder with Larson specifically is, Gates' career, I always get the two backwards. I think it's 51 career games. when I looked it up earlier this week. But about half of those are playing guard. Larson's played 93 career games, and every single one of them's at center. And I do wonder if there's an ability to put more mental load on Larson and take some off of Sam, and both take some mental load off of Sam and actually get the protection calls right.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I also think that Tyler Larson's a little bit stouter in pass pro, and so I think you're going to see him stand up to bulls a little bit, bull rushes a little bit better. And like you said, I think that his mental acuity is going to be a big plus. I think it was a big plus for Taylor Heineke last year and the year before when they played pretty well with Tyler Larson at center. And I think that he could certainly help. And I think that's why my initial reaction to seeing Tyler Larson snapping the ball instead of Ricky Stromberg was, oh, okay, you have a third-round pick that you used on the center, and he's not even going to play. But I think that if he plays at left guard, it makes more sense because it would be a lot to put mentally on Stromberg, considering this is his first year in the NFL.
Sam Fortier, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. We spent most of the first hour. Schlereth joined us, and he was very adamant about running the ball more. Logan and I have talked about this on Take Command, that the running game has to be a part of the game plan, obviously from a volume standpoint in a bigger way, but also needs to be more effective. What is Eric Bieniemy and what have the players and everybody around said about that part of their game and how it can help their offense as a whole?
We asked him about this on Wednesday, and he basically said, yeah, a quarterback loves the running game. It takes pressure off of him. It would help. But he made clear that he wasn't second-guessing Eric Bieniemy's decision. But I think that Terry McLaurin, he's been pretty diplomatically critical of Eric Bieniemy and saying, hey, when they were blitzing last week, we need to take more downfield shots. So I think the running game really fits into that. It's, hey, is Eric Bieniemy listening to his guys? Is he putting his team in the best position to succeed, or is he kind of using the same Patrick Mahomes blueprint, passing a lot that he has at least over the first 7 weeks here? I think the running game, and I would also say that I think the running game, for it to be successful, you can't just run the run game, obviously, and I'm sure you've had a good conversation with Logan about this as well, but it's got to be better designed. It's got to be, called in better situations. You got to block it up well. I think those three things when they have used the running game, have not always been up to par. And so, yes, calling more runs will help, but they also need to execute those better for sure.
Yeah, and then, part of that is kind of the detailing up of it, and I think that is an area where this team has struggled, and we've seen them back off some of the things that they seem to be ready to do in the preseason and in training camp. We haven't seen a lot of jet sweeps. We haven't seen a lot of motion. I wonder, and I don't know if you have any insight on this, whether you have a hypothesis or I'm just going to say a thing and then you go, yeah, me too. But I wonder if the amount of times that Eric had to start plays over on that kind of stuff in the preseason and in camp, or things that he's seen in practice behind the scenes, if he does not trust this group of personnel to execute some of the things he wants, and thus he feels like he's got his hands tied behind his back, and everyone just kind of is then walking around with their hands tied behind their back because the best possible solutions schematically are not being called, and it winds up being this vicious circle of lack of trust, lack of ability to call the stuff, lack of trust, lack of ability to call the stuff.
Yeah, good radio is definitely me, following up that very thoughtful question by saying, yeah, that sounds about right. I don't have any further insight here. No, I think for me, that's got to be some of it for sure. And I also think that, if you go back and watch Bieniemy's previous interviews, he gave a talk to the Louisiana high school football coaches association at one point in 2020 that I thought was pretty illuminating in terms of how his philosophy in terms of how he likes to bring along young quarterbacks. And he basically said you got to put as much on their plate as you can in order for them to just get up to speed, because it's going to take reps. And I think that is, it's not that he's sacrificed the offense at the holy grail of Sam's development so far this year. I think he's tried to do a job of balancing it. But I think that's really kind of what's driving his mentality here is I need to get this quarterback to be as good as I possibly can, as quickly as I possibly can, and that includes throwing the ball a lot. And like you said, it has incorporated some other factors, including taking more motions and things like that off the table. So will we see a shift from Eric Bieniemy, now that the losses are piling up, now that the pressure is starting to be applied? That to me is one of the most fascinating questions about this game, because the defensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles is very good. But as we saw last year, I think they can be taken advantage of running. Maybe not up the middle because they got Jalen Carter and addressed that pretty significant weakness that Washington exposed on Monday Night Football last year. But I still think that is a way that you can move the ball against this team.
Being in the locker room every day, do you get any sense, like, obviously no one's psyched when you're losing. We've all been in losing locker rooms, especially those of us that have covered the Washington football franchise for multiple years. Lots of losing locker rooms. But some of them are kind of healthy losing locker rooms, and you're like, I don't know, man, they could still turn around. Some of them you're like, nope, everybody is excited for this to end. Where is this team on that sliding scale right now in terms of kind of the togetherness of the group?
It's hard to take a temperature of the whole room. I think that there are definitely some guys who want to see some things change, right? Like Terry McLaurin and John Allen obviously have been probably the most vocal, and Terry in his diplomatic, this is not going to make headlines way, saying, basically like the passing game needs to be better, especially particularly against pressure. But I guess for me, man, like you haven't seen basically an open revolt, which happened at the end of last year when Scott Turner really struggled with some play calling there in December against the Giants, those two games, and the Browns game. Obviously, I wrote a story. 11 players spoke to me on background for that story. Like, that's basically the whole offense. That's a lot of players who are really upset. I don't think we're quite there. Yeah. We're not there yet. But, I mean, it was a very hard training camp, and they're not winning. Those are not recipes for success.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And then defensively, you heard, obviously, John voice his displeasure. It's a polite way to say that. But also, like, what Chase said was pretty interesting. We were like, or he goes, yeah, I got to be a better tone setter in practice. I gotta practice better. I got to do that. And that made me raise my eyebrow. I'm like, well, what have you been doing? If you got to be a better leader and you know that, like, what's been stopping you? So I am also curious to see what that side of the ball does this week, because they're kind of on their Jack Del Rio, let's be bad for the first 5 weeks and then turn it around dramatically trend. But they've also faced the skeleton of the New York Giants offense that beat them. And Desmond Ridder, who beat himself. So, one, like, is there any kind of brewing discontent potentially there? And two, where do you think they are on their development, considering the opponents the last couple of weeks?
It's tough. It's a tough gauge, right? Because particularly because of how opponent focused you are in crafting the game plan. Like, I don't expect Washington to use as much 5-down defensive lineman fronts as they did in Atlanta, and obviously that was to take away Atlanta's running game. But to your point, like, the defense feels, and the offensive players too, feel like the defense has been playing much better the last 2 weeks. Yeah, they lost to the skeleton of the New York Giants, but they allowed 14 points. Right. One of them, I believe, on a short field, and like that's not a bad game. And so I think it's just been the lack of complete play that's most frustrating to them, right? Like, the offense is good, the defense is bad. The defense is good, the offense is bad. Both units are bad. Like, or special teams has a tough day. Like, it's just been something every time. And so I think that they're looking for consistency. But, I mean, with the defense and with Ron Rivera as a whole, I think you saw the thing I tweeted out earlier, but it feels like you're watching the same movie every year. Like, this is the fourth year where they've started the first 7 weeks with 2 or 3 wins. Every year between weeks 8 and 14, they get 4 wins. And like to make a midseason surge, to be in the playoff picture, and every year they've faltered down the stretch. They've just faltered less than every other team in 2020 to earn the playoff berth. But, like, man, I have a real sense of deja vu here.
Yeah, it is a deja vu all over again. All right, I got a couple of other things I would love to ask you, but I also, as mentioned in the open, would like to be respectful of your time. Are you good for like another 5 minutes here?
Yeah. Let's do it, man.
Okay. Personnel-wise, Jabril Cox is going to get the call up this weekend. Is he going to like start at middle linebacker? What do we know about what they're going to do to replace Cody Barton?
They're being a little cagey there. I would expect David Mayo to play some in terms of middle linebacker. I think the green dot will be Jamin Davis, which is a step up for him because that's not something they felt comfortable putting on him last year. So he's going to get that nod this year, and I think that's a good illustration for his growth. He's made some splash plays, the forced fumble in Denver, the game-sealing pick in Atlanta. So that, I think, is going to be one of the big things I'm watching this weekend.
And then where are we on the Emmanuel Forbes comeback trail? He played 5 snaps last week, allegedly. I don't remember any of them, but he was out there. Where is he? And obviously, especially considering the opponent, and the biggest straw that broke the camel's back was what happened against A.J. Brown last time around.
Those 5 snaps were like mostly in third and very long dime package. So I wouldn't expect him to be back out on the field because, yeah, you're right. Like, it was the most trust they'd showed in him, leaving him, one-on-one in a lot of situations with A.J. Brown. Then he gets burnt by DJ Moore. They bench him again, and for good. He played 0 snaps in Atlanta, 5 last week, and I really have a hard time seeing him play a more significant role this week, or maybe just situationally, or if somebody gets hurt. But you want to build the kid's confidence back up. You want him to materialize as a first-round pick, and I don't think saying doing the same thing and expecting different results is going to be that thing. So I would expect if he ramps up and becomes a regular part of the lineup again, maybe even a starter, that's not going to happen until New England, maybe Seattle, and in that case, you probably shouldn't leave him one-on-one with DK Metcalf. But we're getting ahead of ourselves because, you need to see him play well in his limited snaps this week and going forward.
Sam Fortier, Washington Post with us. The Eugene Shen hire obviously is pretty splashy in terms of title. Anytime you hire an SVP level, senior vice president level, like that's important. What do you make of that hire as the new person in charge of everything analytics at the Commanders?
Welcome to the 21st century. I mean, this is an organization that, according to Seth Walder of ESPN, who I think has a really good pulse on the league wide, like Washington is always ranked near last in the league when it comes to analytics. I mean, they have good people here, Doug Drury being one of them, who do some analysis and do some particularly game strategy. I don't know if you remember, but like they took a knee instead of kicking an extra point a couple of years ago. Maybe it was last year in New York, and they attributed that to their analytics department. But when it comes to fourth down decision making, when it comes to exploiting matchups, I've not had confidence in this team to do that in a long time. And they hired a guy named Preston Bureau in the offseason. Obviously, Shen is a big get. So I think that this team, and you're in a division, I might add, that is probably the best analytical division in the NFL. Like the Eagles are obviously front runners. The Cowboys are very good. The Giants do some of it. So even if, you're not even just talking about the rest of the NFL here, like you're getting up to speed, starting to, maybe be in the same ballpark as your division rivals. And so I think this is a really big step forward for what the Commanders are planning to do in the future with football.
Can you give, this actually would probably be a pretty fascinating piece that you could write. So take this and flush it out for your employer. But the 30-second version real quick for us, you mentioned some of the ways in which analytics are used. And I think that's tremendously misunderstood by most fans watching who think it's just go for it on fourth down all the time, or, you should pass the ball all the time. But how are teams actually using analytics in ways that the Commanders have either not done at all or not done very well?
I didn't realize that I was on a call with my assignment editor. I didn't sign up for this extra work.
Just an idea.
No. I like it. I mean, so here's one example of how an analytics coordinator told me he presented it to his team, a couple years ago. Is basically they figured out, they looked at, and let me back up here. In football stats, there are 3 different types: outcome, which is passing yards, things that happen; charting, which is what a lot of what PFF does, passing yards against cover 2; and tracking. Tracking is the most valuable data, and it is the least accessible data. And tracking is what you see on Amazon Prime or whatever when they talk about top speeds, and it comes from these little chips, these nickel-sized chips in the shoulder pads. And basically what this guy was saying is a very basic way to look at this is you can look at top speeds for different players. So let's say this week they're looking at top speed and they see that or they're looking at get off, how fast a defensive lineman explodes off the line of scrimmage. If you can see over time, hey, Jalen Carter of the Eagles, if he has certain plays or he has a really big drop off, he starts super hot, but he's going to finish, not strong. So if one coordinator was saying that his team literally would run plays to the field side, away from to the side of the field with more field. I'm explaining this poorly. But
the wider side of the field. It's not as dramatic as in college. Side of the field, but yeah.
They would run to the side of the field that was opposite this player's sideline. So he had a longer run in and out, and they would change personnel packages. So he had a longer run to get on and off the field, and they were trying to tire him out. That was one of a small part of their game plan. So in the fourth quarter, if he came in for an obvious run situation, a 4th and 1, something like that, he would be more tired. It's looking for those little edges, incorporating them into your game plan, and saying, okay, if we want to run here, let's run away from his sideline, if everything else is equal, because this guy will get tired and that'll be important in a key moment. Hopefully I saved that from the awful botch job I did in the middle of that explanation.
No, that was good. I mean, there's so many different ways in which they use data and matchups, like you said. On the sideline thing, I can't remember if Belichick did it to Wilfork after Wilfork went to Houston, or it happened when Wilfork was still playing for Belichick. But there's definitely like a kind of infamous story of a team changing personnel literally every play for the sole purpose of making Vince Wilfork run on and off the field. So, but to get data behind that is crazy and can obviously up your strategy. Last thing for you, Sam, real quick. I know you obviously are on the stadium beat, and there was a little bit of news over the last 10 days or so. What's the latest on RFK and where we are with the potential to get that site secured and to actually build a football stadium the Commanders will play in on it?
By a little bit of news, do you mean Bowser going to the church in near RFK and talking to the community?
Yeah, because if she can actually, no pun intended, get some converts on the opposition here, that would be seem fairly important.
I think it's going to be really difficult to do that for her because, it was a pretty chilly reception by the community members. A lot of people who say, we want to do things with that site other than RFK, such as affordable housing. But I mean, look, man, none of this is truly real until the RFK bill passes Congress. And right now, it got greenlit by the subcommittee. But the House of Representatives have some other problems as we know. Obviously they got a speaker, but now that effort can ramp back up, you really need the RFK bill to pass Congress, to pass the House, then to pass the Senate. And then, Bowser's meaningful engagement with the community will probably take on and the council, which obviously has some skeptical members, then that'll come more into the forefront.
Got it. Yeah, the House of Representatives the last 3 weeks has been incredibly busy doing absolutely nothing. Yet that's exactly what they've been for those that aren't on top of the political news every day. All right, Sam Fortier, read him in the Washington Post. He could have a new piece from his new assignment editor coming out, in the next couple of weeks. Who knows what things get pitched here on the radio might wind up in print. Just, an idea here and there. Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And just so you know, whenever my editor gives me an assignment, I'm always managing expectations. So if you want in a couple weeks, let's talk about it in a month.
All right. I look forward to that. It's not super time sensitive, sometime in mid-February. Also, see you Sunday at FedEx.
All right, man. It's always good to talk to you.
You too, buddy. See ya. That is Sam Fortier with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, Anthony and I dive into the rest of the games around the league, a little analysis, and some probably very bad predictions. Well, at least based off last week. to the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Craig Hoffman here. Anthony Haney, producer of the show there. And Anthony, it has come time to try to redeem ourselves. It has come time for us to go around the NFL and pick every single game and hope that we do not absolutely stink up the joint like we did last week. No thoughts, just vibes, just music. Yeah, get your headphones on, bro. Come on.
Oh, yo, hey, look, I had to get in mood. First of all, I had to get the music ready. That's why I didn't have my headphones on. But
Are you operating on one computer right now?
Yeah, because this one isn't working. Yep.
We did have a situation earlier, though, where Anthony forgot to do something, and we should update the audience. The fine board will reflect a 50-50 split of lunch the next time we get it, because Anthony got the final points to get us over the threshold to 100 fine points.
Yes, I did. I forgot to take out what's trending.
Yeah.
I didn't do it this
time. Bad job. It's okay. It's basic blocking and tackling error. It's a 5-yard penalty. But we only had 5 points left, and thus I think Monday we're going to get lunch, actually, which we actually need to get 2. But Monday we'll be at Capital One Arena. So that's pretty exciting. By the way, Kyle Kuzma later in the show. And, of course, if you missed any of the Junkies coverage this morning from ESA, they had a bunch of people on, including Will Dawkins. So definitely check that out. The Rooster had Bilal Coulibaly today, I saw.
Ooh, that's lit.
So, nice. I'm curious to see who we have on Monday. So we'll figure that out. But, yeah, Capital One Arena, Monday, we'll be there. You can come hang out as soon as doors open. We'll be in the concourse ahead of the game against the Celtics. All right. Anthony, last week, I got started well on Thursday Night Football. This week, we got started well on Thursday Night Football. We did both pick the Bills, so we're 1-0, which leaves us where going into the week on the pick side of things.
So would you like me to include that win from yesterday?
Yeah, we need all the help that we can get.
So you currently sit at 64-42.
Okay.
I myself, yours truly, 57-49.
All right. So that's not good.
No, not at all.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Nothing spectacular, but that's what happens when you go 4-11 last week. Anthony went 2-13.
No. I went 2-11. You went 4-9.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
No, it's not. All right, Rams and Cowboys gets us started on the Around the NFL plunge this week. Rams are 6-point dogs on the road in Dallas, coming off that tough loss to Pittsburgh. I think this is going to be an interesting one. The Rams offense can do some things, but they've also had trouble protecting Matthew Stafford. Obviously, the Cowboys D-line is pretty nasty, and they are coming off a bye, so they should be well rested, as opposed to the Rams having just dealt with Pittsburgh and TJ Watt. So I'm going to take Dallas in this game. I don't feel good or great about it, but I'm taking Dallas.
Yeah, I think I'm also going to take Dallas. The first couple of weeks, the Rams did a great job of protecting Matthew Stafford, but as you just alluded to, they haven't necessarily done that as of late. And I think Dallas coming off the bye, well rested. I think they're going to get after Matthew. But I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Rams still have the firepower to go out there and compete with those guys. So I think they'll edge them out. Dallas, though.
Yeah. By the way, congrats to Sean McVay and his wife Veronica on the birth of their first child. Very exciting. I met Veronica when she and Sean first started dating back in the day, which is crazy, before Sean left. And I remember talking to him when he got the Rams job, being like, hey, are you still with that girl that you were dating? And he's like, yeah, she's coming to L.A. with me. And now they're married and have their first child. And so happy for them. And so happy for Sean. So it's been a week for Sean McVay. Let's see if he can start his first game as a dad with a win. Vikings and Packers. Minnesota, 1.5-point favorites on the road at Green Bay. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. The Packers looked like they had really had something in Jordan Love to start the season, but they, yikes, man. They are just 2-4, 1-1 at home. Vikings are on a bit of a run here. Their losses close games. Like, are they actually figuring some stuff out? Brian Flores got that defense playing a lot better the last couple of weeks. Is this where it all comes crashing down, though? And Minnesota and Green Bay exit this game both with 3-5 records. Or sorry, 3-5 records.
Yeah, Jordan Love definitely got us early. Those comeback wins, we thought, it was just him getting used to things, but he finds a way to make every game interesting, and this will probably be similar. I think the Vikings will jump out front with an early lead, and I think they'll maintain that lead. I think Jordan Love will make it interesting again, though. The divisional game, I could see it. I'm going Vikings, though.
I jumped off the Viking ship. They've then started winning.
You're still afloat.
Am I going to be the weight that sinks the ship?
Oh, Craig.
You know what? I'm going to do a wacky one here.
There we go.
I'm taking the Packers.
Good stuff.
I don't feel good about it, but I feel even worse about the Vikings. It's also going to be a nasty, ugly game. It's 38 degrees and raining, the forecast. Can they get Aaron Jones going? They got everybody healthy again in the backfield. I guess we're going to find out.
It's too late for me to switch. 38 degrees?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that cold for
not.
Green Bay, but it's kind of nasty, not really throw the ball all around the lot weather.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with you, Craig. I think I'm going to go Packers.
Now I want to go Vikings because you stink at picking games.
Okay, you go Vikings. I'm going to go Packers.
I'm going with Packers. I'm sticking. We can't do the – it's like when they had the switch pitcher a couple years ago, and the switch hitter and the switch pitcher just kept going. It's like someone's got to declare. I'm declaring Packers.
Go, Pack, go.
All right, Falcons and Titans. If you watch this game, please seek a therapist. You have self-esteem issues. You don't. You convince yourself that you like it. You don't. This game stinks. And the Falcons are probably going to win it, which would somehow put them at 5-3. That's gross, man. It's been a weird week for Arthur Smith. Seems very smug. They had the weird Bijan thing last week. I guess the Falcons are 2.5-point favorites on the road. The Titans are just a bad football team. They're going to start Will Levis. It looks like Malik Willis is also going to play. Vrabel, of course, is like, I'm not telling you guys anything. It's just some bad ball. Bad ball at Nissan Stadium. The Falcons will have more points by the end.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the Falcons as well. I just don't believe in the Titans anymore. I don't think the Titans believe in themselves anymore. I think you're about to see a lot more people, unloaded before the.
Yeah, they just traded. They traded Byard. You think King Henry gets moved?
If Derrick Henry goes to the Ravens, Craig, they are the Super Bowl favorites. There's just so much you can do out of the pistol formation with Derrick Henry for one, Lamar for two, and then the weapons they have on the outside. Good gracious.
They do have a need at running back after the Dobbins injury earlier in the year.
Exactly.
Man, that'd be crazy. If I'm the Ravens, I'm like, what do you want? You want a 2? Fine. If it gets us a Super Bowl, fine. Whatever. Saints and Colts. What do we know about Olave's status? Arrested earlier in the week. I think it was a driving incident.
Yeah.
I think is he okay? Is he playing on Sunday?
I think he plays Sunday, to be honest.
Let's see. A depth chart. Olave does not have a designation. So I think he's good.
Yeah. He's in a good place.
I don't know what to do with your boys, man. They scored 38 last week on the Browns with Gardner Minshew. And then they'll score 3. And then they'll score 38. I do not know what to do with the Indianapolis Colts.
I think the game against the Jags where Minshew was a turnover machine and he was questionably, point shaving. I think that was just an anomaly. All the other games, he's actually played all right in them. So, again, if he can just not turn the ball over, I think the Colts win this game. And guess what? JT looks like he's getting his legs back. You still got Zach Moss. Pitt, his yards after catch are ridiculous. I'm going with the Colts. I'm all in. The defense is playing sound. And again, the Saints offense is literally a one-man wrecking crew with Alvin Kamara because all Derek Carr is going to do is check down to him. every time.
Yeah, he had like 25 touches last week, if not more than that. It was crazy.
He had 12, 12 targets.
Yeah, I'm taking Indianapolis as well. I don't know what to do with the Colts, but I also don't know what to do with the Saints. But like I don't know what to do with the Colts is more positive, and the Saints it's negative. Dolphins and Patriots. Miami 9.5-point favorites at home. They're obviously going to be pretty ticked off after losing to the Eagles last week. The Patriots coming off a win over Buffalo, which all of a sudden looks a little bit better with the way Buffalo played last night with the win over Tampa. I'm going to take Miami in this one. Bounce back. I mean, it'll be difficult. This might be one of Tyreek's lower receiving yard games of the year because they will make someone else will the Patriots beat them. But that also assumes that that's possible. And Tyreek, as he proved last week, Philly doubles him. He just runs through the double team. Give me Miami.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Miami as well. I would love to see how Tua does against Belichick. And what year is it for? Like 4?
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Miami. I don't really have a lot of analysis with it. I just
even
think
in Miami's
overall,
bad games, they score like 20, which means the Patriots have to score, and I don't trust that to happen.
I mean, they did it against the Bills, though.
Yeah, the Bills' defense is really bad.
Yeah, they're reeling, for sure.
Yeah, they've not been good since all their dudes got hurt. Imagine that. They lost other good players, and now they're not as good. Mm-hmm. Jets and Giants. Technically, the Jets are 3-point favorites on the road, but we all know that's not really how that works because everybody – like, who gets the players' lot this week? Like, do they have enough parking for both Jets and Giants players? How does that work?
The Battle of New York. Who knows?
They literally share a stadium.
Who's the home team?
The Giants.
Well, probably.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously, the Giants would get it if there is one. But, like, the Giants and Jets have separate locker rooms. I presume, unless the NFL is like, no, you're the visiting team. You have to be in the visiting locker room. Like, do the Jets get to use their locker room? Do the Jets get to, like, is there separate parking on game day? Like, I don't know how this works.
You're asking this question to a guy that
also doesn't know how it works?
Yeah. I wish I knew, though.
These are the important questions. Who can we call that would know that? Anybody?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'd have to find someone.
Would Mraz know?
He might. Mraz has had a busy week. Did you see him getting crushed all week?
No.
He criticized Zach Wilson for taking his bye week and going on a vacation with his girlfriend to Utah, and because he's like, why isn't he grinding in the building? Which I hate that take, and I would tell Mraz that to his face.
Yeah, I don't like that take either. Like, what the heck?
And so he's just been getting crushed all week.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that's the world that Mraz often exists in, which is funny because Mraz can be such a gas bag, and then he comes on our show and he actually has such good analysis, and I'm like, why don't you do this all the time? And again, I would say all of this to Sean's face. Lovely gent. The point is, we'd have to ask someone who played in this rivalry probably to have the answer, or coached in it. And I don't know that we have anybody on speed dial that did that. I'd have to think harder. Who do you got in the game?
Let me make sure I get the chant right. Jets. Go Jets?
No.
Oh! All right. Here we go. Jets. Jets. Is that it?
I think you should automatically have a loss added to your resume.
I keep forgetting, man. I don't know why. I'm not a New Yorker.
I was going to do a lame, I'm taking a New York joke and see how long it takes for you to figure it out. That's not a viable answer. But
It's not. It's not.
Giants.
Yes, I need this, Craig. I need these wins right here because the Giants? You're going with Tyrod and the Giants?
I think they have a formula they figured out that can work well enough. I think their defense is actually legitimately way better than people realize.
Okay.
And I just don't really like the Jets.
I mean, that too. There's merit.
I think they could turn Zach Wilson into what they turned Sam Howell into. I think they will turn him completely inside out defensively.
Oh, because of Wink?
Yeah.
But offensively, they didn't do nothing. Like, literally, the entire... After they scored the second touchdown, did nothing.
And what'd they do? Won the football game.
Well, they won. Well, you're going to have to get up early then. I don't know.
We'll see. All right, Jags and Steelers. Somehow a 5-2 versus a 4-2 because these two teams feel very different. Jags, by the way, 3-0 on the road this year and 2-point favorites at Pittsburgh. I'm taking them.
You taking the Jags?
Yep.
I'm right there with you, Craig. Right there with you. I don't think the Steelers are 5-2 good.
Yeah, I don't either. You just got to make sure you block TJ Watt and then, like, I don't know, evaporate him from the field. He's ridiculous. He's everywhere. He's so good. And yet Myles Garrett is having a better year. We'll get to him in a second. Eagles and Commanders. We've obviously been given analysis on this game. There's a small sneaky part of me that says this is the kind of game that Ron Rivera wins, when absolutely no one gives you a chance. But I have stronger 2019 vibes than I do previous Ron Rivera vibes, where I'm like, no, this thing's gonna absolutely implode. And I think this could be a weekend that helps push it in that direction, which is absolutely not what I'm rooting for. Because, man,
work is going to be so tough.
It is not fun to come to work when everyone's angry around everything. And I really don't want to deal with that. The angry YouTube comments, the angry this, the angry that. Callers are upset. Like, it's just not fun, and it feels pointless because then all we're doing is just waiting until we know, like, whether they fire him now or fire him later doesn't really matter. And so it just, you wind up in this stupid waiting game. I don't want to do that, but I also like being right, so I'm going to pick the Eagles. I picked the Commanders to cover the 7. I'll tell you that much.
Okay. I, too, am picking the Eagles. I think we're about to get destroyed. I think we're about to get blown out.
I think there's also a chance of that. And that becomes a really interesting conversation because the more blowout losses you have, the more credence there is to, like, hey, just make a change now for the sake of making a change, which they do not want to do, and they should not want to do that. That is good. You should not want to make the change now, even if you know you're going to make it at the end of the year. It is so disruptive, and you don't have an obvious way to turn it around. And I think that a lot of fans probably realize that too, as the shine seems to be coming off EB before our very eyes. It's like the idea of putting more on his plate as head coach is less and less appealing the more this offense struggles. Okay, so we both are on the Eagles. Texans and Panthers. Is this the week Carolina gets its first win? Number 1 versus number 2 pick.
This is not the week the Panthers get their first dub. I think C.J. Stroud is about to go out there and he's about to put up some numbers.
They did have a bye last week, did Carolina. They also changed offensive play callers.
Yep.
Hopefully that leads to better performance, but I will take the Texans as well. Browns and Seahawks. Myles Garrett, one-man wrecking crew, headed to Seattle. P.J. Walker starting for the Browns as Watson is still hurt. Seattle 3.5-point favorites at home. And we saw the Browns, despite how well Myles Garrett played, give up those 38 points to the Colts last week.
I'm going with the Browns, Craig. Geno, I think, it was a feel-good story last year. Everybody, really impressed with what he did. I just think this Browns defense is going to overwhelm him. We've seen it earlier in the season when they played the Bengals. If you're not allowed the Bengals defensive line to really go out there and get after you, I can only imagine what Myles Garrett is about to do. Like, we've seen him do the Euro step. We've seen him do the cat daddy, the Dougie. We've seen him do everything. I think he's about to go out there and have a monstrous day.
I hear you, but he had a monstrous day last week and they gave up 38 points. And is P.J. Walker really going to be able to continue this? Like, I'm going to go Seattle at home. It's a tough place to play, too.
I don't think they're asking him to do too much, though.
They're not. And look, if they make a trade, for Derrick Henry, like, that's a season-changing type of trade. But without Nick Chubb there because of the injury, like, I just don't know how sustainable it is. Eventually, you stop catching people by surprise. They get a little bit more tape. Pete Carroll's very smart. I'll go Seattle. Chiefs and Broncos. 1, 2, 3.
Chiefs.
Ravens and Cardinals. 1, 2, 3.
Ravens.
Bengals and 49ers.
Oh, okay, my bad.
No, this is a let's talk about it game. And what is the latest, by the way, on Brock Purdy's status?
He is questionable.
Okay. I think for intrigue's sake, I would like to see Sam Darnold play. Obviously, we'll see if Purdy can get cleared, but for concussion. Trent Williams also questionable, by the way, so we'll see if he can get back. But ultimately, you've got a Bengals team that's playing a lot better ball going into San Francisco. Can we do a conditional pick here?
You're going to
Purdy?
Sure.
Purdy plays, Niners win.
Okay.
Darnold plays. Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm taking San Francisco either way.
Okay.
I'm taking San Francisco at home. They're just way better at home. Purdy's never lost at home, I don't think. San Francisco hasn't won a road game in forever, but they're 3-0 at home on the year. I'll take them.
I think I'm going with the 49ers as well. Defense has to bounce back, and they have a tall task ahead of them with, Jamar and company coming to town. So I'm thinking 49ers get back on track. Also, with Trent Williams coming back and hopefully Deebo,
yeah,
I think their offense can, start to get going again.
I think they're going to try to run the hell out of it.
For sure.
All right, Bears and Chargers. Somehow these are 2-2-win teams. Tyson Bagent ready to play again for the Bears as Justin Fields is out. Nice feel-good story last week. Give me the Chargers.
You're going with the Chargers? I'm going to surprise you, and I got a little help from my man, a guy called Ant on Instagram. He told me to roll with the Bears. So I think I'm going with the Bears.
You're listening to random guys on Instagram now?
He's not a random guy. He used to call into the show all the time. He DMs me here and there. He gave me some shoes before, some Under Armour shoes.
Are you taking pics for shoes now?
I'm not taking pics for shoes. But he did send me.
I mean, it can't be a worse strategy than whatever you did last week.
I mean, you have a point because I did really bad last week. So my man, he hit me. He was like, yo, I got you. I'm going to make sure, you end up with some good picks. And this one I was a little scared to, say.
You've been using his picks the entire segment?
For the most part. Except one, though. The Dallas one, he told me to go against Dallas. He said Rams, Cowboys to cover. And I was like, I love it, but I can't do it. So this...
I'm not even picking against you anymore. How long is this is a new thing this week?
Yeah, this is just this week. He sent me some picks, so I'm going to see how I fare, Craig.
Oh, my God.
I'm going to see how
Raiders and Lions, who does Ant from Instagram have?
Lions.
Okay, same.
Okay.
Here's what I want.
But I do have, most of the picks that he has, I agree with for the most part, except the Cowboys, which I overruled him on.
Okay, so you overruled him on that one, and then you're listening to him for Bears-Chargers.
Yeah, that was the only one.
I guess if the Bears win, and then he was right on the Dallas pick too,
I'll
roll with him for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Didn't know I was switching the Ant that I was picking against. Also, where are my shoes?
That's a great question, Greg.
I'm saying, I'm not.
We'll discuss that off air.
Okay. All right. You're damn right we will. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, which 6 commanders will play the biggest role in how the game is decided this weekend? Our pick 6 is next. Then Kyle Kuzma, day before the Wizards home opener. Plenty of show still to come. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live on the free Odyssey app. Mr. Fortier, how are you? And are you using the headphones that I sent you?
I am using the headphones that you sent me, so I'll not be pulled over. And I got to tell you, man, seeing the craziness coming out of Chicago today with the Justin Fields comment, with the DC abruptly resigning, it's just like giving me flashbacks to what this team used to be like. And I'm like, wow, I'm talking about football in a stadium? That feels odd.
Right. One, God, this call quality is just exceptional. So just, I got to say, I'm going to send you a clip later just so you can hear how clear you are. Two, we actually, so earlier in the show, we did a segment called This, That, and the Other Thing, and we wound up putting the Bears stuff in that. And yeah, it felt very oddly familiar, but also safely distant, which I think is good. All right, we got a lot to get to and not a lot of time. So first, let's...
Yes. James Smith-Williams just pulled up and honked at me. I'm on the radio with Craig Hoffman right now. Do you want to say
What's
something?
up, James?
How you doing, man?
What's up, James? Although you probably can't hear it because this is just in Sam's headphones.
Quick. Craig, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Feeling good. Just talking to Sam. Last time we did a hit with Sam, he put Matt Paris and Ben Standing on, so this is an upgrade.
Way better. Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
Definitely an upgrade.
All right, let's make sure nobody gets in trouble here. All right, James, drive home safely.
Thank you. You have a good one.
All right, goodbye. James Smith-Williams, everybody. I mean, that's been an ongoing bit.
Oh, okay.
I think Travis Kelce's got the best bit of all. He's just dating Taylor Swift. So,
That
you
too.
know, forget the lyrics. and then we got our guy Ian Eagle talking about Travis Kelce finding blank space in the end zone. Now, that's how you do it. By the way, I did follow up. For those of you that listened to the end of the show on Monday, we said we're going to have to investigate. Was that, like, did Noah Eagle feed Ian, his dad, the lyric? I texted Ian, I was like, we might have to have you on the show to do this. And he's like, there's nothing to investigate. I'm just a Swiftie.
Ooh, okay.
And I was like, oh, well, there goes the segment idea, Ian.
Did you see Jason Kelce confirm the rumors, though?
Yes, he kind of did on WIP today, which is very silly. Jason, your podcast is very good and very successful. If you're going to confirm the biggest rumor in the celebrity world,
Exactly.
don't do it on, do it on a radio show, obviously. Don't do it on a radio show. Do it on your own podcast, you moron. I'm just kidding, Jason. You're definitely not a moron. Jason Kelce, not a moron. It was just not the, why am I doing, let's keep going with the comments. We have a new submission to the Real Things Hall of Fame. The F-35 is a fighter jet that the military has. It is very expensive. Very expensive. The F-35 program costs the U.S. government / the military over $1 trillion. Like, this is one of the most expensive things in the U.S. government's budget is the program that makes these planes. Each one is incredibly valuable and expensive. And something happened during a training mission, but this jet leaves, they go on a training mission, and it's in stealth mode, apparently, and the pilot has to eject. So the pilot's like, I'm up out of here. Pilot lands relatively safely, has, I think, an injury or two that has to be tended to, but, like, is alive. But then they lost the jet. So the jet disappeared from the radar. The U.S. government's like, well, we don't know where the jet is. And so the Buford, which is the suburb not suburb, it's in South Carolina. It's by Charleston. Close enough. If people are actually from there and don't want to say that and want to say it's by Hilton Head, I know I grew up in the state. Leave my geography alone for the sake of the story, which I've now made less efficient by telling you all of those things because I can't help myself. Talk about a plane crash. Hey, we're back. So the F-35 gets essentially lost, and they're like, I don't know where this very expensive warplane went. And lo and behold, sometime the next day or later that day, it crashes somewhere, and luckily no one's hurt. But this $100 million plane is gone. Whoopsies. We crashed the plane. And this is an eyewitness account from a Charleston area television station of someone who heard the crash.
In the bathroom taking a shave, and I heard a screeching, between a screech and a whistle. I said, what in the world is this? And I heard a boom. Then my whole house shook.
White says he didn't realize it was a plane at the time, so he didn't call anybody.
He first started getting at me. I said, am I supposed to see a meteorite coming out of space or something? And I said, well, if it's an airplane, it needed to be reported. Let the thing was flying just too low.
The F-35B airplane wreckage created an extensive debris field.
That voice, we gotta get a drop for the voice because it might be better than Steph Curry's.
I was gonna say, I feel like we have to do a comparison. Can I pull this off with? Yeah, okay. So I had to compare or see if I had enough channels on the board to do this. But we got Steph Curry here. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 final hour here. Also streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Wizards forward Kyle Kuzma wraps up our day of Wizards coverage here on the Team 980. Everyone's been all over the Wiz today before the home opener tomorrow. And don't forget, Monday, this time, you could be watching the show in person at Capital One Arena. We'll be on the concourse. Come check us out at Capital One Arena on Monday before the Wizards and Celtics. Guest list TBD. I'm not sure if we'll have any players be able to come upstairs as they arrive at the arena or anything, but we'll definitely have like some media folks or whoever on. But mostly Monday show. Let's not get it twisted. Even though we're at Cap One, it's still the Monday after Commanders game. So your boys will be talking football. Don't be late. 1st and 10 gets us started at 4 o'clock. All right. Right now, though, something that we will also revisit on Monday. Our pick 6. Which 6 Commanders will have the biggest impact on the game? Let's get to it. Maybe. Any day now?
This won't play for some reason.
Oh, no.
Wow.
Well, let's load it up on the other computer because it's essential. We need the introduction. We need to get our minds right. And also, we very much need to use
At 6.
I'm going to be their biggest.
There it is.
The 6 biggest Commander storylines.
It is caught!
Delivered at 6 o'clock sharp. It's the Pick 6 at 6.
I'm going to be their biggest and harshest critic, but I'm also their number one fan.
All right, let's get into it. We picked the 6 Commanders, and it could be players, could be position groups, could be whatever, that we think are going to have the biggest impact on the game. I always let Anthony go first, which then makes it even more fun for Logan Paulson to make fun of him when we use it on the pregame show on Sunday. So, Anthony, who you got?
Number 1.
I actually talked to Logan yesterday and told him, today, and told him not to make fun of me. So,
did you really?
Yeah. I told him not to make fun of me.
What
number 1, I'm going Eric Bieniemy, and I think Eric also understands the fact that he has to, have a bounce back game. Started his presser earlier this week saying he has to be better, and I think it starts, with helping Sam out, and he can help Sam out in multiple ways, rolling pockets, which we saw in the second half, but also we need to see screens come back. We haven't seen a lot of screens as of late. And I think that'll take some pressure off of Sam and also, help the run game that everybody's been clamoring for.
Yeah, no, 100%. I am pretty interested to see what they can do in that department in terms of the play calling. I know Eric said he's got to be better. I don't know. I don't trust him to change. And that is 7 games worth of data saying that he's going to do the things that he's going to do. And I think what our version, he obviously wants to be better, but to him, does better mean the same things that it means to us? Does it mean doing things differently? Does it mean running the football more? Does it mean installing a new run or two? Does it mean putting Sam under center more and telling him to deal with it? What is the thing that is going to make him better? We've got all these ideas. Is it more jet sweep action? Is it, tricking it up and just straight up put Curtis Samuel in a Wildcat for 7 plays in the game? The possibilities are endless. Clearly, he's got to do something different than what you've done. Because I think what also compounds this, Ant, is 7 games into this, we now have enough data to see that this team, the Giants just blew open what was already a flesh wound. Now it's just we got to amputate. You can't keep doing the things you were doing because you cannot pick up blitzes. And other teams will jump on that. And I think it's on EB to fix it. Part of that is personnel. Larson for Gates. And we'll see. I think it's going to be Chris Paul, but we'll see. For Sadiq Charles at left guard. But, yeah, man, the play calling and everything's got to be very different. All right, on to the next.
Number 2.
might be Jamin Davis with the green dot. So he's got to call the defense, get everyone organized. And, he also was the one who gave up some of the big plays last week. And, Dallas Goedert obviously is a big play potential guy at tight end. Miles Sanders is a big potential play guy at running back. They do have obviously bigger play receivers, which we'll get to. But I think Jamin plays a huge role in this week, and also as a spy on Jalen Hurts. And we'll see what Jalen's mobility is like. He's been battling a foot issue. But if he's going to run around, Jamin's the guy that probably winds up stopping it. How does he do? He's made so many big plays for this team this year. Can he make some more? Jamin Davis is number 2 in the pick 6 for me.
I love that pick again. But also, he's just going to have some more added responsibilities with Cody Barnell. And, again, we want to see Jamin because we think he's grown since, his rookie and his second season. So I think Jamin, going out there, showing everybody that he can handle everything on his plate, I think everybody in the fan base will love that.
Indeed.
Number 3,
I think I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson. And sophomore slumps are real, and he's gotten off to a super slow start. And I just think there's more than enough time for him to, salvage his season. The game against the Eagles, he had a big drop. Last week, he had a big drop. The game against the Bears, he's also had a drop. So I just think, I think it's just time for Jahan to, turn the switch. And I think, his teammates, the coaches, everybody, still has the utmost confidence in Jahan. And it's just more so him just turning everybody's, trusting him into, production. So I think this is a game, again, where, the Eagles are banged. Well, they're sort of kind of getting healthy actually now. But he's still going to have an opportunity to go out there and make some impact plays. And I think helping Sam out, will be huge for this game.
He had the game-tying touchdown in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
He's shown, obviously, he's shown the clutch ability. He also dropped what could have been the key pass last week, and maybe even the game-tying touchdown against the Giants probably would have been a little bit short. But who knows? Maybe if he catches that, he's able to put the ball over the pylon and get in. The thing about a sophomore slumps, quote-unquote, is that he's actually having almost the same statistical year to last year, except for touchdowns. But we all thought it'd be better. We all thought it would be better than what it was last year. And I think one of the things that's encouraging is he's starting to look a little bit more like himself the last 2 weeks. Obviously, he has that big drop, but last week in particular, Logan made a comment to me earlier in the year that he's like, it doesn't seem like his legs are underneath him. Maybe that heavy training camp load, he just, as a younger guy, didn't really understand how to manage it, and he just went out and was running hard and doing all the things that you kind of want, but you also need to be able to manage yourself to be fresh for the regular season. And it seems like his legs are starting to get back underneath him. Maybe he's starting to get a better feel and timing for the offense. So hopefully Jahan can ultimately be, like you said, enough time to salvage the season. I think there's definitely time to continue to grow on that. Speaking of sophomore slumps.
Number 4.
Everyone had really high expectations for Brian Robinson because his season had this tragedy in the middle of it last year. He gets shot in the preseason, and not only is that something that is incredibly hard to deal with mentally, but the physical toll for an NFL running back being shot in the leg is pretty self-explanatory. He then battled an injury later in the year after he'd finally gotten going, and everyone's like, all right, man, if he can just stay healthy, this dude's going to be awesome. And it does not seem like he has adapted very well to Eric Bieniemy's schemes. And what they're asking him from a technique standpoint to do in these gun runs. And whether that is fixing it for him by letting him run from the dot or getting his technique right and getting the timing right for him to be more effective from the gun, they've got to get him going. He's too important to this offense. I would like to see him used as a pass catcher as well. He showed that ability in training camp. It was something that I thought was going to be a big part of this offense. Instead, it's just been minimal Brian Robinson. And frankly, if you want to do this, like Brian Robinson / Chris Rodriguez, if Robinson can't, Rodriguez looks like he can. Just go with the rookie. And I hate that, but that's the league. You got to do what works. So one of those guys got to get going. I would love to see Gibson get going as well. And you talk about EB getting guys out in space. Where the hell has AG been? But yeah, Brian Robinson getting going, I think, would be enormous for this team.
Yes, sir.
Number 5.
I'm going to go with Benjamin St. Juice. We saw what A.J. Brown did on his last outing against a rookie in Emmanuel Forbes, but for some reason, I think everybody wanted, Jack Del Rio to make a switch during the game because, quite frankly, it just wasn't going well for Emmanuel Forbes all game. and they never really made the change. So I think just reverting back to like what they did last year, if you look back at the Monday Night Football when they had Benjamin St-Juste matched up against A.J. Brown, he went out there, he held him to one catch for 7 yards. And I just think, I mean, that's something you expect just because he's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit more physical. Yes, he can be handsy at times, but I think in today's NFL, I think you rather your corner to be a little bit more physical. And A.J. Brown, he's had 5 straight games of 125 plus yard, 125 plus yards. So I think it's time to put an end to that, go out there, have a good performance, and I think Benjamin St-Juste, he's the man for the job.
All right, Anthony, I'm gonna just rip the curtain down here. So the way we do this is we put these names in the rundown, and Anthony has a bad habit of putting 3 names down before I even put 1 down. And if we were doing this for reals / how we're going to do this moving forward, my number 1 pick would have been Benjamin St-Juste.
Okay.
So Anthony had already put down Bieniemy, Dotson, and St-Juste before I had a chance to say St-Juste. That is how important I think Benjamin St-Juste is in this game for that exact reason. They cannot keep giving up big plays. He has given up big plays. He's going to be on the guy who gets the big plays for the other team. BSJ is dumb important on Sunday. And that leads us to
number 6.
I have no idea who I want for number 6, Anthony. I've been staring at this blinking cursor in front of me that is just a blank space in the rundown where number 6 is supposed to go. Because truth be told, if these 5 players / 4 players plus Bieniemy have good games, the Commanders should win. That's how important these players / Bieniemy is to this game. I really believe that. The obvious 6th one would be Sam Howell, but we try to not be that obvious. So with that in mind, I'm going to go the interior defensive line for the Commanders because if they can limit the efficiency, so I'm going to go interior, D-line versus run. I will even try to be more specific. You are playing 1st and 8 every time the Eagles get a first down. Because if they get in 3rd or 4th and short, they are going to brotherly shove their way to a first down over 90% of the time. If you can limit their efficacy and efficiency in the run game, then you can make them in 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and then hopefully keep them out of a 4th and short, or obviously keep them out of a 3rd and short. So I will say, the interior, not just against the tush push itself, God forbid you make a play there. I know it's so hard. They're so good at it. But can you be stalwarts against the run and keep the Eagles out of short yardage situations? All right. Anthony, we have 2 segments left. We have 3. We have the Real Thing segment at the end of the show, obviously. We have Kyle Kuzma, which is from Media Day. We've been playing those interviews for you all week. And we also have our weekend preview. I say we do the weekend preview real quick next, and also kind of a what's at stake for the Commanders this weekend. And then we'll Kyle Kuzma at 6:30? Or should we flip that? Let's flip it. Let's do Kyle Kuzma next.
Okay.
Kyle Kuzma, great interview for Media Day. Some basketball, lots of basketball, obviously. A little bit of fashion talk. And he clowns Danny Avdia in a very funny and friendly way. That's next on The Hoffman Show.
The Command.
the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we will be at Capital One Arena on Monday, where Kyle Kuzma and the Wizards will be taking on the Celtics. We will be in the concourse live for our entire show. Obviously, we'll be doing a ton of Commanders reaction. It'll be our usual Football Monday, with the exception of a couple segments where we will hopefully have some Wizards guests joining us. But on the radio, sound the same, but hopefully some of y'all can come hang out, say what's up, say hello to us on Monday at Capital One Arena. Then very excited to watch the game. And, of course, Dave will be there, and we always have him on a Wizards game day, so we'll talk to Dave probably live on set, so it'll be a good time on Monday. With that, it's our pleasure to share with you now our interview with Kyle Kuzma from Media Day. Really great chat with Kuz. We didn't get to have him on the show last year, so I was really looking forward to this, and boy, did he deliver. Here's our chat with Kyle Kuzma, Wizards forward. I love to just start with kind of a vibe check. Like, obviously, when you have a guy like Brad who's been here for so long, you had KP, other veteran who had been here. Those guys are gone. You have this young group coming in, and you're the face of the franchise now. You're the guy with the tenure, all 3 years of it now, going into year 3 in Washington. Yeah, right. But like you're the guy. You and JP are seen as kind of the guys on the posters, all that kind of stuff. As you enter this season with that being the situation, how does it feel?
I mean, for me personally, I'm just like grateful. First of all, obviously this is something I've been waiting for my entire career, and not many NBA players can say they have an opportunity like this in front of them. So for me, it's just important just to take advantage of it. And, it's great because it gives you even more confidence, you know what I mean? And I'm already confident, but, naturally walking in, like it just feels different. So famously, you're a guy who needs way more confidence. Say it again. I said famously, you're a guy that needs way more confidence. Look, you can never have too much. We all have insecurities, right? For sure. So, you can never have too much, so it's great. I mean, specific to that, though, in all seriousness, like the plan last year, we're keeping you at the deadline and all right, we're going to sign him, re-sign him with this big deal. Like, that's put forward by a GM who then gets dismissed after the season. And obviously there's a belief in Wes, and he's still here. But what were those initial conversations with Will and Michael like when they got here? And then how relieved were you, or how excited were you when you talked to them and saw that that plan was still in place? Just because they're straight shooters at the end of the day. And, that's the people I like to do business with and work with. So, naturally it just made it easy because going into the meetings that I had with them and them just being, really transparent and saying like, yo, listen, like you have an opportunity in front of you. This is what you want. So, if you want to, come in and you want to like build an environment and you want to continue to build your name and however you want to take your career, I mean, where else you going to do it? You know what I mean? So, DC is a great city to do that in. Obviously, being here for 3 years, like growing fond of the city more and more. And, just like I said, this is what I wanted, and I've always wanted it. So yeah, what is it that you love so much about the city? The city, man, I feel safe here, man. That's the biggest thing. I live out in Virginia, but I just feel like I can walk my dogs anywhere. I think I can just go to restaurants and, people don't really bother you here, so it just feels like home, it's just chill. And it's, the East Coast is a little bit different than the West, but I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's something, I don't know, I moved here in 2015 and like instantly it was like, I love this place. Like, and it's the same thing. I was living out in Virginia at the time. I live in DC now, but like, I actually think people that don't take advantage of the entire area are missing out. Like whether it's DC, Maryland, Virginia, like there's stuff all around, and it's, obviously DC traffic can be a bore, but generally speaking, it's pretty easy to get around. Top 5 worst in the country. Really, you think so? It's top 5. You're an LA guy though. Come on. That's what I'm saying. I'm telling you. You're qualified. Listen, my off season I live in LA and Florida, both bad areas. Yeah. And then when DC's bad, it can be bad. Especially if you're up by like that the bridge by the Beltway. Yeah. Or that too, yeah. No, not the 495, is it? Yeah, the Beltway. Yes, yeah. That one is crazy. Yeah. But no, it's so many different pockets, because you could be in Arlington, there's stuff to do, in Bethesda, there's stuff to do in DC. So it's like different vibes that each place is.
Yeah.
Too, so it's cool.
It's a great neighborhood town.
Yeah.
That's I think the cool thing.
Yeah.
And it's different than like a New York or whatever else in that way. LA's got that for sure too.
LA does for sure.
The distinct neighborhoods.
It's more wholesome here, so it's cool.
Yeah, Washington, D.C.
Wholesome.
Notoriously wholesome. Kyle Kuzma with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, from a basketball standpoint, as you guys start to build this thing, like, I was just talking to Wes about the shot diet, how that changes. He said you guys want to modernize a little bit this year, play a little bit faster. What's your role in that?
Just following through with, what the coaches want. Obviously, with me being, one of the people at the helm, I have to be an extension of the coaches and what they want to do and how they want to play. But playing fast and modern sounds amazing. So I think for us, we were really slow last year. And, I think this year with our personnel and being younger and having Poole and having Tyus loves throwing that up pass. Corey loves running the wing. Denny's a speed demon. So, and then, I like to get up and down and transition too. So it just naturally fits our team. And I'm excited because it's going to be actually like fun to watch. And, I watch film a lot, and I feel like last year it's kind of not fun to always watch the way we played. And I think, just from being in open gym, how it feels, watching open gym, like it's just quick, decisive, and go up and down and go. So it's fun.
What is the difference that Tyus makes? He's a name that I've started to talk to people around the team. He's coming up a lot. Like, what's Tyus Jones like?
Just a good dude, man. He's just a good dude. I think for him, he does a great job of, obviously he doesn't turn the ball over, and he's a sense of calmness on the court. I know a lot of times, and it's going to help all of us too. For me, a lot of times I may be sporadic on the court. Same thing with Jordan a little bit. So like having that ball handler that can just have everybody just breathe, calm, get in your spot, come off a screen, deliver the ball, come off pick and roll, hit you in the back. Like, that's fun to play with. And he's a team guy, how he plays his team. He's not out there hunting assists or holding the ball too long. You know what I mean? Like, he's off it, decisive, and like he plays the right way, and that's the win. So
I think it's interesting watching you when you really get going. And there's this, I don't want to call it a high wire act. Like, you're too good to call it a high wire act. Like, when you really get going, like, feed Kuz, like, let's go. But how do you, when you get in those moments, especially now you got a guy like JP, you have Corey on the wing, like, you have all these guys around you that are playmakers as well. How do you balance, getting your own shots and riding that zone versus, all right, maybe, I can take advantage of the fact that they're starting to pay a little more attention to me, dish off and let others get in their opportunity without losing that hot streak.
Yeah, I think, you just said it. I think last year, like, I got a real taste of, like, kind of being, like, a number one option or, like, a focal point of the offense a little bit, especially when guys were out. And then just realizing that, like, one, for me, I can be in zones, but like when I play basketball, like I prefer to pass first and like get people involved and make the right plays. So naturally, if I get hot, like if you want to double me, that's fine. Like I'm comfortable passing the ball. A lot of guys, they get hot and then they double team, and then, the team kind of gets stagnant because they don't really know how to like just play off other people. But the biggest thing is like if somebody's hot, you let them roll. Mm-hmm. I'm always a fan of that. Like if it's me, I'm rolling. If it's JP, like we have times in open gym where we're on the same team and he's took all 6 shots and he's just made all 6 shots and we're good because it's like, yo, you're cooking. Like go
right.
Keep going.
Cook.
Like keep cooking. So,
yeah.
That's the thing that you have to have a team to really buy into too, because a lot of times, you'll be on teams and if somebody's cooking, somebody might just get in the way of you cooking, and like this team is not going to be this way. And I think we all understand that as a collective group, and it's going to be fun. So, all
right, last basketball question I have for you. Then I got a couple fun off the wall ones because we're a sports radio show. Like they're coming.
Yeah.
So I think it's pretty fascinating that like you, JP, you guys have won championships. Yeah. Like you guys have seen, and for him, he's seen Steph and Clay and Draymond and like these guys that are going to the Hall of Fame. For you, LeBron, AD, like you've seen it and what it's like at that level. Yeah. How do you bring that here from an example and then also beyond just, lead by example? I think I was reading actually a book on leadership recently, and Tom Izzo was actually quoted as saying, like, I don't believe in leading by example because that just means you're working hard and not bringing anybody with you. So how do you, which I thought was pretty fascinating because, obviously if you see a guy working hard, you might follow. Right. But how do you bring that level of like, hey guys, this is what it takes to work at a championship level to this group?
Well, I think it's a balance, because there are those leaders that just rah-rah, but then it's like you kind of rah-rah yourself to sleep a little bit and you talk a little bit too much and guys turn you out too, so tune you out. So I think for me, I'm just myself, like I speak, I'm very communicative, but my main thing is just leading by example, because at the end of the day, if I'm not holding myself accountable to the things I got to do every day to be great, as I say I want to, then how is somebody else going to believe you or want to follow lead or follow suit? So naturally, there's going to be times where you have to say something because at the end of the day, guys will get tired to listen to a coach talk all the time. Like that's natural sports nature. But, it's all about really just having that balance and being yourself at the end of the day, not overthinking it,
All right, fashion question. Most underrated fashion house?
Underrated fashion house. Ooh. Bottega.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I would say them for sure. I mean, they're catching a lot of steam right now. It's really nice.
The bags are on fire. Yeah. Wifey's big on that one.
Wifeys are always big on that. Wifeys are big on that one.
Yeah,
Mine too.
The Bottega bag is a must right now. Mm-hmm. We are a sports talk radio show, and this is as good as we do from the creativity department. Quick hitters. We're calling it the Whiz Quiz because that's as creative as I could get this morning.
Okay.
So the Whiz Quiz. Kyle Kuzma is the first one to go through this. Favorite vacation you've ever been on?
South of France.
Okay.
Yeah, south of France. Went to like Cannes, Monaco, Nice. The whole Riviera, so it was nice.
That's beautiful. Yeah. What's the place that you haven't been that you want to go?
Amalfi Coast, Italy.
That's a great call. Soon. Great call.
Yeah.
What's your coffee order?
My coffee, just straight black.
Okay.
Yeah. Just say if I'm like kind of tired of that, I'll do iced black coffee.
Okay, that's the mix-up. I add ice to my black coffee.
Yeah, that's it.
Teammate that you trust the most to drive on a road trip?
To drive, Anthony Gill.
That is a phenomenal call. He's probably going to be the unanimous choice.
Yeah, because he doesn't really drink, obviously, so I trust him the long way.
Yeah, and got kids. He's a responsible guy. Who's the teammate that you trust the least to drive on a road trip?
Probably Denny. Probably Denny.
I'm a little scared that one might also be unanimous.
Yeah, probably.
Yikes. All right, best and worst on the aux in the locker room?
It just all depends. Denny, I'd say Denny's probably one of the worst because he just has the same set of songs.
Okay.
And I don't think he has the vibe check you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
He can't switch it up. And he's a little young, so he doesn't really know.
Yeah.
It's different genres you can listen to. You know what I mean?
Who's the best?
I'm gonna go with myself. Okay. I actually like the DJ.
Okay.
I know how to DJ, so
okay.
I'm always. I don't.
You got a SoundCloud or something?
TV.
Can we?
I don't watch TV. I literally go in my house and I'm even in my office or I'm listening to music all day. So
love it. And then last but not least, you got one shot on the court outside the paint for $1,000. Where are you spotting up?
Corner.
Corner three.
Yeah, corner three.
All right.
Easy.
All right, easy enough. That's the first Whiz Quiz. Any questions we should ask?
No, I think that was solid.
That was good. Just a nice little quick hitter.
Like it.
All right, cool. Everybody, that's Kyle Kuzma with us here on The Hoffman Show.
This is The Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and the Odyssey app.
Show. We're on the Team 980 on the free Odyssey app. Just about 25 minutes left in the show. So, Anthony, normally we start the show with what's at stake for the Commanders on any given weekend, and instead we started with Mark Schlereth today. So that was pretty darn good. We got Stink on. He was fantastic. But we did want to, before we get out of here, give kind of a bigger picture of what's at stake for the Commanders. Also, keys to the game real quick. We already picked it. We both are on the Eagles. But Anthony, to me, I think that they're probably there's kind of a what will happen and a what should happen situation here. What should happen is no matter what happens this weekend, the Commanders should seriously entertain all trade offers next Tuesday. They realistically are not a championship caliber team. They have a poorly built roster in terms of the distribution of talent. And I think that is enhanced by the fact that some of the position groups that you have invested heavily in haven't exactly crushed it. It'd be one thing if your D-line was super heavy invested and they were the most dominant force in the NFL. They're not. They're playing fine. They're playing better the last couple of weeks, but teams have found ways to neutralize them because they're able to do other stuff because you have holes elsewhere on your roster. They've had smart game plans against them every single week. And you look at the Giants game, and the Giants did a bunch of smart stuff. They moved the pocket. They tried to run the ball. They got some screens. They did all this stuff. And the Commanders still had a bunch of sacks and pressures and tackles for loss because that Giants O-line was bad. So I would be entertaining trade offers. But what I think is going to happen is if they lose, that becomes way more palatable than no way. We're 4-4. Why would we just beat the Eagles? Why would we make trades? I think that is exactly how they were thinking of this game. That's not inside knowledge. That's not me reporting anything. That is me reading how Ron Rivera has approached his entire tenure. And I think what's at stake on Sunday is if you compete and lose, we'll see. If you win, then there's no chance they make any significant trade ahead of Tuesday's deadline. If they get blown out, then I think we're potentially on mega trade watch for about 48 hours.
To be honest, Craig, again, we already know what will probably happen. They'll probably just stand pat, not do anything. But even if they do go out there and it's a close game, I just still don't think we have the team to be a legit contender in the NFC, to be honest. Again, this is Ron's fourth season, and like Sam Fortier said earlier, it's almost like we're watching a movie every year. This is the same old thing, and it's just year 4 in the regime, and nothing's gotten better or nothing's improved, and those 2 losses to the Bears and Giants are still weighing over me. That's really what's been on my mind. Even if we do go out here and beat the Eagles on Sunday, I still don't think we should be standing pat at the deadline because, again, the inconsistent play that John Allen talked about or alluded to is still, prevalent in with this regime. So until there's something different about the top, I don't think anything will, be different.
I agree. And I think it's important to note that, some people are like, oh, I don't want Rivera making the trades anyway. Are you going to get maximum value with this front office? Maybe not. I don't know. I don't. NFL trades are always wacky. I never know what anyone's supposed to get traded for. But, would you rather have some draft capital?
Yep.
Or the player to either walk in free agency, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, or have to franchise, or you kind of feel like your hands are tied, or you lose them for nothing. That's a possibility too. So I think I would rather just, if I'm a new regime coming in, it's God, I wish I made that trade. I wish I had the power then over what we got, but I'm glad I have extra draft picks. But the problem, the other problem with this is Josh Harris is trying not to be Dan Snyder.
Yep.
Both, and it's not hard for him. Basically every inclination, every instinct that Dan Snyder had, Josh Harris has the opposite one, which is why Josh Harris is probably going to be a good owner, and Dan Snyder is one of the worst that we've ever seen. And that's not even talking about the off-the-field stuff. That's just like as an owner over a football team. And he's not going to get his fingers in this. Like, he's not going to put his thumb on the scale and be like, you better trade X, Y, and Z. Would he be like, hey, I would appreciate it if we, please entertain all trade offers. Assets are really important to us long-term. That is about as intense as I could think Josh doing anything. But realistically, I don't even think he does that. And that's a sticky wicket, man. Like, you don't want your owner meddling, but at this point, he's the only one that is going to be here long term, with the way the season's going, especially if you lose on Sunday. So it's just as kind of a wacky spot that they're in. But I do think the more, like, they can at least be competitive, then maybe it quiets some of the need for a head on the platter of the fan base, but probably not. I don't know. Maybe this is self-preservation talking. It's if they lose and it's ugly Sunday, man, and FedEx, like, they're getting booed off the field. There's Eagles fans chanting. Like, this game does mean a lot to Harris because he's the owner of the 76ers. It's a divisional game. You're honoring Darryl Green beforehand. Like, how many times do you get embarrassed at FedEx in front of Harris and Magic and, whoever else might be there? I don't know if Magic's coming on Sunday. But, like, how many times does that happen before you just go, enough of this? We're making change for the sake of change. And if they get blown out Sunday, the calls are going to be louder than they've ever been. And I feel like at that point, I feel like something has to happen. And whether it's a position coach getting fired, like, you're going to need a head on a platter. And I hate that. I hate that that's the world that we live in. But, like, you just can't keep doing the same thing, even if you don't make the big change that everybody wants.
But is a close loss really going to have you sort of kind of at ease?
No, but it buys you a week.
Oh, okay.
Think of how much calmer everyone was after the Philly game the first time, coming off the Buffalo game.
Yeah, but that's coming off the Buffalo game. But this would be coming off the Giants.
The Buffalo game was the worst game of the season at that point. They lost 37-3. And everyone's like, oh, okay, that was an aberration. They figured some things out. We're okay. Like, how it happens matters. In a way, like, I still think this week would have been tumultuous if they beat the Giants because everyone was so mad for the entire game on Sunday because they stunk. And if they just, if Jahan catches the ball, they punch it in, they win in overtime. It's like, yeah, cool, you won, but, like, you beat the Giants and it took overtime. What the hell? Like, when's the last time they played well? The first half against Atlanta?
Yeah. But I just feel as though, so if you look at our schedule so far, we played 4 of the 5 worst teams in the NFL so far.
Yeah.
The first 2 we won, we got trounced by the Bills, and then we had a close game against the Eagles. The next 2 we lost, had a heartbreaking loss to the Giants, and now we're going into the Eagles. I don't know. I will be furious. I will be furious, man.
It doesn't feel good, and it
doesn't make sense.
It's going to be ugly if they lose on Sunday, and especially if it's bad. All right, that's what's at stake. Keys to the game, we've been giving them all week, so that's that. Score more points than the other team. How about that for some analysis? Boom! Do that. Guarantee you win. We get back. Real things, real people said into real microphones. Show on the Team 980 on a Friday. Weekend on Deck, final segment. Brought to you by Anthony.
Nobody.
That would be a good one for us to get sponsored. Last segment, your weekend brought to you by someone fun. Sales folks / everyone listening who has a business that could sponsor this radio show. You could have this be your segment every single week. And instead, I just make that silly joke that I stole from Ernie Johnson every single week. All right. Let's see. Housekeeping. Take a Man pregame show. I should have mentioned that so many more times today. Take a Man pregame show is live on Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. from Tap Sports Bar, MGM National Harbor. We're very much looking forward to this. Logan's been diving into some extra film stuff that I've been sending him in terms of ideas. Hey, we should look at this. We should talk about that. We'll obviously, I think by that point, know who's playing on the offensive line. My guess is Tyler Larson and Chris Paul get the nod at center and left guard respectively, but we shall see. Let's see. What else do we got in the housekeeping? If you missed Mark Schlereth, heck of an interview to start the show. He definitely got into the Commanders' offensive line and their performance against the Giants, but also talked a lot about Bieniemy and how the play calling's not helping, about how Sam is done a lot of stuff that is hurt. And when you have a performance like you do against the Giants, as Mark said, there's dirty fingerprints everywhere along that performance. So great stuff. Some really insightful stuff from Schlereth early on in the show. That's available on demand on YouTube at Craig Hoffman, on YouTube at the Team 980 in the podcast feed. And then Monday, we will be live at Capital One Arena. At this point, we will have handed things off to Dave Johnson for the pregame show, but 7 o'clock is tip on Monday against the Celtics, which means we are live in the concourse from 4 till 6:45. Anything else on the housekeeping front, Anthony?
I think you did a great job with the housekeeping.
All right, excellent. So let's try to finish up with the great job with real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Was that a 2 or a 7, the last one you gave me?
It was a 4-7. That's what it was.
Okay. For those that don't know, that are new and have never watched the show on YouTube, every single day, Anthony gives me secret hand signals so that I know what time to end the show. And sometimes they're communicated well, and other times are today. So, real things, Anthony. You're in control. It's a Friday. What do we got? What are our options here? What's our menu?
Before we get to real things, also I got to correct you on the time. It's actually 43.
Okay. Really, you're correcting you on the time.
Yeah, I did some bad quick math. You know, math sometimes isn't our best thing.
No, notorious on the show. Not our specialty.
No. So we start out with Kevin Harlan. He was on the call for the Lakers versus Phoenix Suns game yesterday. And, in Hollywood, you see a lot of unique things.
Yeah, there's a lot of outfits that are questionable, and they're showing one player, and Kevin Harlan just noticed something in the background.
Without the minute restriction, he'll make All-Star. It's a safe bet, right?
That's a safe bet,
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Go back to that shot. Wait, go back to that shot of Reddish. Go back to that shot. What? Hey, this is Hollywood, man. This is Hollywood. What are you talking about? Right up the line. What is wrong with you? I was going to wear that tonight. Were you? You beat me to the shoes. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about.
Those shoes are car payment right there.
That is Reggie Miller, Candace Parker with Kevin Harlan, the NBA on TNT. That's good stuff from Harlan.
How would you rate that fit right there?
A 1 out of 10. It was awful.
Did you like the shoes?
The shoes were good.
Okay.
The shoes, yeah, but like with that fit, no.
Yeah, with the fit, no, but the shoes.
It looked like a costume.
Maybe that's what he was
like
going for.
Star Wars meets Indiana Jones. It was terrible.
Yeah, I didn't understand the mask. Then maybe like I don't know. That was bad stuff.
All right, what else we got?
Second thing we have is Travis Kelce had some advice
this is really good.
For Chargers rookie Scott Matlock.
What's up, big dog? Great to see you, man.
Big fatty.
Hey, I appreciate that, man.
Cool ass dude.
You got to have some fun with it, baby. You already know, man.
That's true.
Good vibes, baby. Keep fighting, baby. We'll see y'all boys in a little bit.
Any advice for a rookie?
You know what it is? Understand the other side of the ball just as well as you know your side of the ball.
Right,
you feel me? Because I'm everything's predicated off of what I'm doing on what the defense is doing. So just loved it, man. Play with the guy next year. That's all I got for you, man.
I have such an appreciation for Travis Kelce because, like, so much of his persona is like party, good time, whatever. Like, there is such a serious person in there, and you get that when you listen to the podcast. And sometimes, like, players have podcasts and they suck and they're terrible. New Heights is really good, and you really just understand, like, the intellect of both those dudes, of Jason and Travis. And, like, that dude could eventually, like, if he wanted to and dedicated himself to it, like, probably be a decent defensive coordinator, nevertheless offensive coordinator. There's such a cerebral understanding. And on a lighter note, Logan and I have always said, when we run a team one day, if we run a team one day, that we're going to do an opposites day or an opposites week in the spring, where we have the defensive players play offensive positions and offensive players play defensive positions so that they actually understand what it's like, and thus they can go back to their actual positions and manipulate and be more successful. And Travis Kelce understands that.
But I think a lot of players usually do that, though. Like receivers, they play probably like corner.
Yeah, in high school, but they don't understand like NFL defenses.
Oh, well, yeah, from that standpoint, yeah.
Like, really, like the great ones do. The great ones pick the brains of the corner, the DC, of the DB's coach. What are you looking for here? What are you looking at? That way they can go, okay, I got it. Like in cover 3, they're trying to actually get me to do this. Because like, I'm trying to think of a good, simple example. Like if you're a defensive end, and you understand that on an outside zone play, the tight end is just trying to run you out of bounds, and you're starting to get run, like you just fall, right? Like instead of fighting the block and being like, oh, I got to get past this guy or I got to set the edge. Like, no, you just blow up the play because you change up what you're doing to not let him adjust your goal. Yeah. So like sometimes defensive ends even actually do it to themselves where they try to go set the edge and they just run themselves out of bounds. And the tight end's like, thanks. Speaking of tight ends, I'll see you all on Sunday with Logan from Tap Sports Bar. See you back here on Monday.